Good morning, everyone. We on? Yep. Good morning, and welcome to our April 13th, 2021 Board of County Commission meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we will begin this morning with an invocation by Pastor Matt Pilot from Christ Fellowship, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Or Blaine. He's in the lobby.
There he goes. Here he comes, working his way to the front. Good morning.
Sorry for being late. I was filling out a form.
You don't have to do that.
Good morning. Love to pray
Morning.
for us this morning. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Lord Jesus, we thank you so much that your presence is here with us at all times. And Lord, we need your presence. We need your wisdom. We think of the scripture verse that says, I can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. Thank you for these wonderful leaders that stand before us, that faithfully and consistently serve our county and our people. We stand with them. We support them. We stand as one county, Lord, to see us prosper and us flourish. So, Lord, just bless the conversations today. Help us to understand we're all one team. We want the same things, health and life and vitality for our family and for our children, for our schools. But it only comes as we invite your holy presence to be here. So we do that today. It's in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, on our agenda today, we have no additional items. We have a request to move item presentation by the Martin County Sheriff. He was going to do a presentation on mental health. Unfortunately, he was called out of town, so we're going to move that one. And with that, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're going to start off this morning with our proclamations and special presentations. And our first proclamation today will be the National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week.
Good morning, Commissioners. Public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services in Martin County, and they are a vital link for our firefighters and law enforcement officers. In honor of Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, April 11th through 17th, the Board honors the men and women whose professionalism helps keep our county and citizens safe. And here to accept, we have David Hodawi, who's a 911 dispatcher with the Martin County Sheriff's Office.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning.
My name is David Hodawi. I'm the Administrative Support Manager for the Martin County Sheriff's Office. I oversee a couple of our administrative divisions, including our communications unit. I have Morgan Tomlinson, who's our communications manager, and Captain Perez. At this very moment, we have public safety telecommunicators at the Martin County Public Safety Complex, receiving calls for service as we speak. These calls can range from a child who is not breathing to someone who has been the victim of a robbery, all the way to a minor parking lot crash. These professional telecommunicators are required to have extensive training, including 232 hours of state-mandated curriculum, followed up by a rigorous state exam that provides them with the tools necessary to respond to a wide variety of emergencies, including those I've just mentioned. More times than not, these professionals are speaking to members of their community on their worst day who are seeking guidance or assistance because at that time something has gone wrong in their life and they may be in distress. These professionals are trained to show empathy while also remaining clear-headed, decisive, all to ensure the safety of the citizens and the first responders that are dispatched to a scene. On behalf of the Martin County Sheriff's Office, we would like to thank the board for recognizing the hard work and dedication of all these individuals within our county every day, who often working long hours in an environment that can no doubt be extremely stressful. This proclamation and recognition is very well deserved and appreciated. Thank you.
Commissioners, we also have Jerry Ezard here, who from our dispatch on the Martin County side, so we're well represented. Jerry, you want to come on up and get a picture with the, wait, Bethany, we're going to get Jerry up there as well.
And who else? We got a whole group. Yeah.
Got a whole team.
Come in.
You guys are out of uniform, I can tell.
Yeah.
Please call administration.
The call will be answered in the order it is received.
Ed.
Yeah, I'm either in it or I'm not in it, so I might as well be.
It'd be interesting to know how they decided that that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Okay, our next proclamation is going to be for Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Every child has a right to be safe, healthy, and happy, and child abuse and neglect is a community responsibility affecting the quality of life of any community. In recognition of this extremely important topic, the board declares April as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Martin County and congratulates Hibiscus Children's Center upon the occasion of its 35th anniversary serving communities on the Treasure Coast. And here to accept, we have Michelle King, who is Chief Development Officer from Hibiscus Children's Center.
Good morning, Commission and community. And thank you for recognizing April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And additionally, we recognize April 2nd as Levon Tilton Day. 35 years ago, Levon Tilton began a mission with one question: what about the children? Who will keep them safe and who will make them feel loved? Sadly, Ms. Tilton passed away in January of this year, but her legacy lives on. With her vision, a shelter was built in Jensen Beach, a village in Vero, and now we have outreach programs in every county on the Treasure Coast and Okeechobee to help parents do better, to help parents not be at risk of losing their children. But sadly, child abuse continues in our nation. Each year, over 400,000 children will experience foster care in the United States. Over 1,800 18-year-olds will age out of the foster care system with no support in place. And most tragically, each and every single day, over 1,800 children are abused and neglected in the United States. Last night, as I was leaving my office, I received a call from a young man who owns a restaurant in Chicago, and he told me that he had been at our shelter back in the 80s when he was 12 years old. Obviously, he has turned the page and he has made his life very well. He has a son of his own, he's married, and he's very happy. But when I asked him, what was your experience? He said he and his brother and sister came to the shelter when he was 12 years old. They went to a foster family. They came back to Hibiscus Children's Center. His sister was adopted to one family. He and his brother went to another foster family, and eventually they were adopted, and he was not happy with the experience. He said, "Michelle, I wish I could have just stayed at Hibiscus." And I said, "Why would you want to stay in a group home versus a family?" And he said, "When we came in, it was at night. I was scared. I didn't know what was going on. We had just been taken away from the only thing we ever knew. And they fed me, they clothed me, they made me feel safe, and they made me feel loved." So I ask you to join us, not just for April as Child Abuse Prevention Month, but each and every single day to fight against child abuse and make our children feel safe and loved. Thank you.
I can see it with your eyes. Yep. 1, 2,
Okay, and our final proclamation this morning will be Alcohol Awareness Month.
Alcohol abuse is a major public health concern that affects millions of Americans of all ages, races, and ethnic backgrounds, and has a huge medical, societal, and economic cost. In recognition of April as Alcohol Awareness Month, the board commends the Martin County Community Action Coalition for taking a leading role in community efforts and the volunteers who provide valuable assistance. And here to accept, we have Jeff Cadell, who is the program coordinator for the Community Action Coalition.
Good morning, Commission. Good morning, everyone. I do want to start off by thanking you for making this proclamation. I don't have to bring attention to the devastating effects that alcohol abuse has on every community across the country. A couple of things I do want to point out, though. If you're not aware, during the COVID epidemic, we've seen an increase of 35 to 65% in the alcohol sales across the country. So it's needless to say that this is going to have some consequences for our community in the near future. But one of the best ways that we can do that stemming of that tide is to prevent early initiation. And so that's why the Community Action Coalition's primary focus is going to be on youth prevention. Now, Martin County is doing a fabulous job as it pertains to alcohol use by youth, but we are lagging with regard to the state averages. Our youth drink at a little higher rate. They unfortunately drive intoxicated at a little higher rate. And so it's some of the things that we're really going to be focusing on as a community coalition. So I appreciate this. This is a great way to kick off our new coalition. I invite all of the community members as well as all the commission to plug in and do what we can to stem this tide. And thank you again for the proclamation.
Works, yeah. Heard yours. You heard it?
No. Yeah.
So we got these two, too.
Okay,
More stuff.
departmental number 2, okay. Okay, we're going to move on to public comment, which I have quite a few public comment forms this morning. So I only have 4 of those that are related to a particular item, though. So I'm going to go ahead and take everybody during general public comment, with the exception of this. Our first speaker will be Paula Smith, followed by Amy Pritchett. Ms. Smith.
Right here, ma'am.
And just a reminder, before we start public comment is limited to 3 minutes. You will have a warning signal just before your time is up. You'll get a warning beep, and then a final beep when 3 minutes. So, and we do limit that time to 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Paula Smith. I'm the coordinator of the Indiantown Community Garden in Indiantown. It's in the Booker Park, Carter Park, Habitat for Humanity area. I'm here in reference to RFB 2021-3291, the Yard Trash Processing and Transport and Management, which is, I believe, going to be discussed or voted upon today. I just want to speak about what interstate recycling has done for so many nonprofits in our community, including the Indiantown Community Garden. When I first spoke with Jed Browning requesting some composted soil for the garden out there, which represents, we probably had 50 families out there that have their own plots that they grow their vegetables in, and it's a food insecure area of our county. And we have a wonderful community garden there that was recognized by University of Florida IFAS Extension for diversity and inclusion. And it's a wonderful place. We don't, we don't have many resources, and Jed Browning offered to deliver composted soil to the garden, which we have utilized. He's probably sent out, I don't know, countless trucks out there as I've expanded the garden, and as the need is, as we've had the need. The minute he went out there to look at the garden, and he totally understood, what it means to this community. And we're just very thankful for his support. He's a local contractor who really supports our community, and we appreciate it. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Our next speaker will be Amy Pritchett, and Amy will be followed by Andy Spears.
Good morning, Commissioners. First, I'd like to acknowledge the success of our Martin County Senior Prom. Eduardo Diaz, as he was coined, one Eddie, one county, one chance. I'd like to acknowledge all the volunteers and those who donated their time, goods, and services. I'd like to acknowledge Sheriff Snyder and his staff and the fire marshal. And happily, not one single case of COVID reported by attendees after 2 weeks. I'd like to move into Rocky Point's current speed limits. I heard a presentation a few weeks ago, and I feel that the speed limits are not being acknowledged properly, and the current of 35, except for Horseshoe Point Road, is not acceptable. I didn't feel the engineers did a study. They basically regurgitated outdated and not applicable Florida highway verbiage. Rocky Point is unique, and Horseshoe Point Road, Cuban, Williams, and Robertson are not collector roads by definition. If the commissioners don't have the final say, why are we here? The engineers are appointed, and they shouldn't have more authority than the commissioners. The real authority are the residents at the top of the org chart found in the State of the State address pamphlet. We are asking our representative to adjust the speed limits to reflect the needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Andy Spears, and Andy will be followed by Danny Cole.
Get my notes. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I'm Andy Spears. I'm the president of the Martin County Realtors of the Treasure Coast, and I'm here speaking in that role this morning. Affordable housing is of great importance to us at the Martin County Realtors of the Treasure Coast. We've been very involved recently with the state legislators to protect the Sadowski Fund, which is presently being attempted to be permanently defunded, and we've very much been encouraging them to not do that because it's very important to us. It's specifically in our legislative positions that we would like the private sector to provide workforce housing that's affordable for our Martin County residents. As you know, inventory is extremely low right now, especially in the lower price points of our market, and we need affordable housing for our first responders, teachers, the hardworking people of Martin County. So I'm here to say that we fully support the RFP process for the disposition of county-owned properties for affordable housing in the Port Solera and Golden Gate community redevelopment areas. Because that goes hand in hand with what we've been fighting for recently with the rating of the Sadowski Fund on the state level. So that's it. I would fully support that, and we need more affordable housing here in Martin County. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Danny Cole, and Danny will be followed by Jennifer Johnson.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Danny Cole. I'm here on behalf of Jed Brownie and Interstate Recycling. I've only known Jed for a couple years, but since I've known him, we've done a lot of good things together as far as helping people on the side of the road and all the community. All his money stays in Martin County. I don't know why we would contract anything outside of Martin County. Jed spends all his money in Martin County, even on a vacation, he don't leave. So I think it's an easy, smart choice to keep it here. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Jennifer Johnson, and Jennifer's going to be followed by, and I'm sorry if I pronounce this, it's hard to read it, Kevin O'Toole?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Jennifer Johnson, owner of Closets by Design, locally here in Palm City, here on behalf of Jed Browning, RFB 2021-3291 and Interstate Recycling. I've known Jed for quite a while, both professionally and personally. We have spent a lot of time together volunteering with 25 United, a local group here that has helped anything from flood victims to people that are less fortunate in home remakeovers, serving meals through the pandemic, and we've spent a lot of time in the Bahamas with 25 United as well, helping people. Jed is very committed to this community. I have been a long-standing resident of this community. Jed, his family, his business, he supports our locals by employing them. We all work together. That's something that is so great about Martin County, and I'd love to see Jed and Interstate Recycling continue to have that ability. I think financially, the proposals that they've put forth will give a long-term plan. I believe it's 9 years that financially this county can live with, and it will not be fluctuating like the other bid. And so I think keeping things local here with a company that we know has provided great service already is a very, very smart choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Kevin O'Toole. And Kevin will be followed by Adam Dowd.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Kevin O'Toole, owner-operator of Knockout Enterprise. I run a roll-off recycling business. I've known Jed Brownie for approximately 4 years. To say Jed helps people is an understatement. He introduced himself to me at the Martin County dump facility and has done nothing but support my business and help me. He's helped me grow to the point where I make sure that I spend my money in Martin County. I've been approached by many big companies to buy fuel out of Martin County, and I keep my money in Martin County because of Jed. Jed is a huge supporter of small businesses. If I have a problem, if I have a question, I call him, and he's always willing to help. I cannot see why this would go anywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Adam Dowd, and Adam will be followed by Rob Ranieri.
Good morning, and thank you for hearing me today. I'll apologize in advance. I'm not a very good public speaker. I wasn't expecting to be here today, but I am here on behalf of my neighbor, Roy Gustafson, who intended to be here, but he's a little bit older and he was nervous about COVID. So I'm speaking on his behalf. If I may, I'd like to simply begin by reading a letter from Roy. Good morning. My name is Roy Gustafson. My wife Natalie and I have owned our lot in Foxwood for 41 years. I'm speaking today regarding Comprehensive Plan Amendment 1919 and CPA Text Amendment 2004. Our 3 daughters were born and raised here in Martin County. Like each of you, we have been proud to call Martin County our home. With COVID-19 still very active here, it's been neither safe nor desirable to continue going door to door, as several of us have done in the past to collect signatures on a petition opposing the residential development. However, we have gathered 134 petitions signed by residents of District 3 where this project is planned to be built and who, with this project, would have the most significant impact to the quality of their life. These signatures represent 97% of the residents we spoke with. In 2006, as you know, the subject 321 acres of land was approved for development of 91 2-acre lots for the Martin Preserve project. We, the members of the Foxwood community, understand responsible development and do not oppose this. In 2012, this property was purchased by Christ Fellowship. At an August 4th, 2015 County Commission meeting, Commissioner Smith commented that this same site is, and I paraphrase here, an over-the-top environmental model that Martin County should be proud of. On June 27th, 2019, at the first community informational meeting held by, I believe it's pronounced Pulte? Thank you. Pulte? The developer's representative stated that the individual lot size for the proposed development is planned to be 5 homes, 5 home sites per acre, with 40 to 50 foot street frontage. The remaining acreage would be for roads, retention ponds, native vegetation, preservation, and the community common areas. This proposed level of residential density in this area of Martin County is both inconsistent and incompatible with the rural community atmosphere of this natural area, and is certainly not why most local residents chose to live here. South Fork High School is over capacity and is currently using 3 portable classrooms. There are nearly 1,950 total students, with approximately 500 brand new, very inexperienced drivers on Pratt & Whitney Road every single school day. Martin County's own Tourist Development Council website proudly proclaims our community where the great outdoors still feel natural, and that time isn't the only thing that's preserved. We are naturally quaint, a place for unwinding and reconnecting, professing our old Florida charm, and this is the type of community we'd like to maintain. In closing, 91 homes becoming 300 homes becomes 600 additional cars on roads that are already not prepared for the drivers currently on them. There's not sufficient infrastructure.
Sir, your time's up. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, our next public speaker is Rob Ranieri, followed by Tyler Gilberti.
Morning, Commissioners. Rob Ranieri with House of Hope. I'm here also to endorse Interstate Recycling and Jed Browning for the yard waste transport and processing bid that's before you today. Interstate Recycling for years has been very involved with House of Hope. Once we moved into gardening and growing of our own food, Jed was one of the first people to step forward to see how his company could assist us. They've been by us since the beginning as we've evolved our growing processes with their generous support, donations, expertise, labor, to really make our gardens and our farm a reality in Martin County. He does the same thing for numerous nonprofits and most of the public schools also that have gardening and programs in the schools. So obviously he's a local company. They're all local people. Be great to see you support a strong local business who does right by the nonprofits and the kids of Martin County. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tyler Gilberti, followed by Billy Vaughn.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tyler Gilberti. I'm actually the guy that pays all Jed's bills. So what I can tell you is that one of the big things that we see for him securing this contract is that in taking care of all Jed's finances and the company's finances, I see every local business that gets paid out of that contract that he uses. And there are many. In addition to that, I'm also at the office when people come in for the donations that he's offered so generously, which are many, in fact, there. Jed's a member of the community, supports his community, and I ask you all to consider him and his company for this contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Billy Vaughn, and Billy will be followed by Michael Gilberti. Good morning.
Good morning. I prefer to speak during the agenda item if necessary. Okay. Thank you all for your time.
Sure, Billy. Okay. Okay. Our next speaker is Michael Gilberti, and Michael will be followed by Lawrence Dalton.
Good morning. I'm Michael Gilberti. I'm a new resident here about 4 years. I live on Martin Downs Boulevard, and I was formerly employed by a state agency for 20 years in a municipal government for another 16 years. And the only thing I can share with the group, which everyone already knows, is my experience has shown that anytime a municipality or a state agency reaches out of state for anything, it's never a good outcome. So I'm here to support interstate recycling, and consideration should be given to him. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lawrence Dalton, and Lawrence will be followed by Jed Browning.
Yes, good morning, Commission. My name is Lawrence Dutton. I'm a resident here in Palm City, Florida. Been in Martin County for a little over 20 years. I'm also in the business currently right now within consulting for varying transportation within varying avenues of yard waste as well as heavy equipment. I've been following the bid process here off Demand Star from its inception about the RFP 2021-3291 for the yard waste here locally that is being potentially recommended by staff to Camo Farms, which, as we all know, is a company located out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I think beyond a reasonable doubt, we can certainly see in the commission in this dais recognizes the amount of support and outpouring at this point that Interstate is receiving from its local community. And a lot of that has been spoken prior to myself, has certainly generated from the fiscal fortitude that he has received from having that contract, sustaining that contract on behalf of Martin County without incident to date. When we really dive in and look at the bid, I would really implore the commission at this point to look at staff's recommendation both from a fiscal standpoint as well. As we know, within that, there was two options that were given. Option one was hauling the waste directly off of it in its whole on an outbound per ton rate, leaving the waste facility. Option two was to potentially grind at the site and then remove that material. If we look at the prices that were turned in by all four bidders, three of those bidders all kept a uniformed price consistently for both option one and option two. The only one that strayed from that was Camo Farms, who staff is recommending at this point, and that price being lower, although on option one, is substantially higher on option two. So I think the commission really has to, from a fiscal standpoint, look at the predictability that they get with a company and a local company like Interstate, and that predictability falls back upon its community, its citizens, knowing that this day is voted correctly for not only a local contractor, but moreover from a fiscal responsibility, knowing that if option two was to have to be enacted over a course of a 9-year contract, the contract being 5 years with two 2-year extensions, which would bring it to a total of 9. If we run those numbers, if option two has to be implored at the beginning or at onset of that contract, we're talking almost an $8 million difference in impact on that bid. That is something that is very direct for you to take a look at and basically explore. So as a citizen of this country, certainly as a resident here in Martin County, not only do I second and third the motions of all the support that's come here from the community about providing a local contractor, because that has a systemic effect and a macroeconomic effect within our community. Moreover, as a taxpayer, I need to know that this dais is going to look into what those impacts are going to be, again, from a fiscal standpoint, on hiring a company that's from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thank you very much for your time this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Brownie, I just noticed that you have the item listed, so we're going to hold you to the item. Unless you want to speak now. Item? Okay. Our next speaker is Louis, it's hard to read, Hofpaver?
Almost, half an hour.
All right.
And I would like to wait till the agenda item, if possible.
Department, you have 1 and 2 here.
Yes.
And
the
public comment.
Multi-Homes Christ Fellowship, I think it's
Okay.
agenda 1 and 2.
Okay. PH 2. Okay. And Mr. Cheyenne Ellison, do you want to speak during public comment or depart the item? Public.
Let me start off by wishing you a happy birthday, sir.
Oh.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here just to represent Interstate Recycling. Jed's a good friend of mine, been a friend of mine for a very long time. I can tell you this, he's been puts his heart and soul into this county. Every time I need something, if somebody calls me for any donations, the first person, if I know I can't get it done, I call Jed. Sometimes I speak before him, and he don't even know he's donating. So there's multiple times I'm like, hey, you need to write me a check for this because you donated to this, that. Long story short, I can't see how we can take a local business that's been providing here and doing a great job and give it to somebody out of the county. So I highly recommend that we keep this local and keep supporting him because he supports us. All right? Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Tara Baldwin. Tara, do you want to speak during public comment? I don't see Tara. We're gonna
Yeah, you're gonna wait until the other item.
hold to. Okay, we'll just put this. Blaine Albright will be our next speaker, and
Gonna wait until the item.
I'd
Hi.
like to hold until the item
which
as well.
which item?
Pulte.
Okay. All right. Rena Shipurik. Rena will be followed by Barbara Cloudis. Barbara, do you want to speak on an item or general?
Irina.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I've never approached the bench, ever.
You can approach the bench.
I hope me being here holds a little bit of weight, because for me, it's down to loyalty. And if you don't have loyalty, then our county is going to crumble. I can tell you, I'm the CEO of Elevate Hope, and we have been in the trenches for 10 years. And the only man who has been in the trenches with me has been Jed. For me, that speaks volumes. It has saved money, and if we get down to the dollar that has not have to come across your desk, Jed has picked up that bill. Jed has made the donations when I needed to get down into Hope Sound for the flooding. I can't tell you the thousands of dollars that he picked up, making sure I had cans, I had trash removed, you need it, I had laborers, I had trucks. There was never a no. It's we will get it done. And right down to Hope Central, right down to the House of Blessings that we are doing, the money that he has filtered through with no fanfare. For me, loyalty stands before anything else in Mount Martin County anyway. And from my students, from Shakespeare, you put your money in thy purse. Thank you.
Thank you, Rena. Our next speaker is Barbara Cloudis, and Barbara will be followed by Debbie Rapner.
Good morning, Commissioners. First of all, I want to thank you. Well, my name is Barbara Cloudis. I want to thank you for your unwavering support the past 5 years of the people of Indiantown. It often goes unacknowledged, but without your support, incorporation would have never happened. Many people know that. The majority don't. So that was my first comment. But I also know that it stems from your support of the people themselves of Indiantown. Indiantown is an incredible place, incredible people. And right now, they're not getting a fair shake because they're not being told the truth about the fire department and the plans being undertaken by the village council. They've been provided false information, distorted facts, information withheld, and the examples that are used as to what could be done for Indiantown are cities that are either just converted and have no demographic relationship to what Indiantown is, and the other one established in 1912. So their situation has evolved over time. But the point is, they have no relevance to Indiantown. And without a joint meeting, I don't think that they will hear the facts that they need to hear. And I hope that you're able to tap into those feelings that you once had for the people of Indiantown and agree to a joint meeting with the village council, because it's not just the people, the village council themselves need to see and understand what the facts are before they continue down this road that they've already set for themselves in establishing their own fire department and EMS. Remember that we're talking of lives here as well as the fiscal impact to Indiantown and the county. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. Our next speaker is going to be Debbie Rabner, and Debbie will be followed by Richard Geisinger.
Good morning. My name is Debbie Rabner. I'm a 38-year resident of Martin County and have enjoyed living in Indiantown for all those years. I came here before you today to ask for your attendance for a joint meeting. Nobody in our community that I know of has said the service we're currently receiving is inadequate and inferior. We have saved many lives. My daughter is a trauma nurse, and she tells me how quick their response is when they fly people out. So it comes down to life or death. So I'm asking you, please take the time, meet with our village council, tell them how important it is for our current services. I'm not very comfortable with what I've heard. I've attended meetings, I've gone to their workshops, and I am not comfortable with the consultant telling me that we're paying how great his volunteer service is going to be. I'm not only concerned with the village people, but I'm concerned with my friends and family that live outside of our boundaries. So please, I can't tell you enough, please meet with our council members and discuss this with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. And Richard Geisinger. Richard will be followed by Aaron Larica.
Good morning, commissioners. It's been a long time. I first came to say hi to my pastor, Matt Pilot, and thank him for being here and encouraging him. The real reason, other than that, is to support interstate recycling, and as former president of the Martin County Taxpayers Association, when I spoke in front of you so often, we would always encourage to keep contracts local when they could be kept local, and I would ask you to think through that when you're discussing this contract today. I can't be here later, but I have the, I guess the fortunate or unfortunate position to be in. I used to work with Jed's father. That's how long that company's been here and how long I've been here, and sometimes it's hard to say that, but it's been like 50-some years. So anyhow, I encourage you to check into the Mr. Dutton's comments, I think, about the long-term effects financially, and I just know that this company is a good company, and I hope you consider it to keep this contract local. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. We have Aaron Larica, and that is the last general public comment form I have, so if you'd like to speak, then please go ahead and fill out a comment form.
Thank you. It's Larica.
Larica.
Just wanted to say good morning, and very disappointed on how the last meeting went with the mumbo jumbo coming from the engineering department regarding the speed limits throughout Rocky Point. I don't see how in any good conscience or good sense can you equate a highway manual to a residential road manual. I believe we're all in agreement that the residential streets are misclassified. County of Martin is in violation of the Florida statutes 316, 189 regarding the speed limits. A letter has been sent to Governor DeSantis' office in regards to that. Commissioner Hurd, not only have you lied to my face, but you have repeatedly misused the funds, the taxpayer dollars allocated for the district.
Please address
Ma'am,
the
you're
board as a whole.
yes, thank you.
Sure. I do commend those who had the good sense and the respect for their constituents to listen to them. I believe Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Smith, you were the ones who mentioned in the last meeting.
Ma'am, again, you have to address the board as a whole. Do not call them out.
Okay, I apologize. To those who did listen to their constituents and recognize that, yes, some serious measures need to be taken to resolve the speeding issues as far as the speed tables, in regards to an argument that some people make, yes, the speed tables are designed to be driven over. I would like you to, again, take this very seriously because I don't think that either of you would like to have the wrath of a mourning parent of a child or an animal, and you will assume all liability should there be another accident. Thank you.
Thank you. And that completes the, do you have a general public comment? Go ahead. Please state your name for the record and then complete a form.
My name is Carol Pelton. I live in the Foxwood community, and I'm addressing general comment for the Pulte home, 1 and 2. Our community, I feel like our community is going to be directly impacted by this project. High Point, formerly of the Pulte at Christ Fellowship. My concerns are the infrastructure, and it would be adversely affected. In February, we had a house fire in our neighborhood on Hawkview Circle that burned to the ground. Tropical Firehouse is 3.6 miles from our development. You drive there in 7 minutes. You can bike there in 18 minutes, and it took those fire trucks over 20 minutes to get into our neighborhood. We're a known community that do not have hydrants and that they need pumper trucks. That garage fire turned into a fully engulfed house fire, total loss. As we were standing there as neighbors, with empathy for the family that was losing their house, it really brought to light how vulnerable we are in the Tropical Farms area. If the wind had been blowing the other direction, that would have been 4 or 5 houses fully engulfed. I called the fire department. I said, why was there such a delay in that response? And I found it unacceptable. Station 22 was brought out to Indiantown to help with a vehicle fire, a vehicle accident. That was our only man crew in Tropical Farms. That's one crew that was sent 15 miles that way. And so they had to call Hope Sound 23. 23 had to get into Tropical Farms to get the pumper truck, to get it over to Foxwood, and then fill that truck up to address that fire. A garage fire totally went up into a house fire. It was horrific to watch as a neighbor. So my concern is that we're going to add 284 more homes. They're going to have hydrants, but we still have one fire station out in Tropical Farms with one crew. What's the expansion going to be? Is there going to be 2 crews out there because we're putting 300 more homes out there? Are they going to expand that services out there? And we all know infrastructure does not happen until the numbers are out there. We, in a community, taxpayers felt very underserved at that moment in time. It was horrific for us to watch that. We have retention ponds. I asked the fire department, why didn't you pull water out of the retention pond, which was behind that house? They have 25 foot of hose 25 foot is a third of a house that they could pull out, and they would have to have a pumper truck on that property. Why don't we have adequate equipment? So my concern is this, that we don't have enough infrastructure, and I think that this is it's over the top. We're in secondary urban sprawl for a reason, because the infrastructure is not in place. And I asked you to reconsider this because the impact.
Ma'am, your time's up. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody else have public comment? Okay. Please state your name for the record.
How you doing? My name's Trevor Roll, and I'm speaking on behalf of Jed Browning, which is pretty easy thing for me to do. He's influential to everybody in my community. I'm from Port Salerno, Florida, and he gave me the confidence to step out on my own. Not only has he supported my business, I work at South Fork High School. I'm the softball coach. Anytime I ask for a donation, he's there without a doubt. How much, this and that. Another one of my buddies, Cheyenne, who runs Elite Gas, donates back to my community. Not only does he support the community as an individual, he supports your own individual family. He helped with my father's funeral. He's there at any given time. If he doesn't answer the first time, you better believe he's calling you back the next time. And as a community, like we represent in Martin County, like if you go to Texas, what do Texas talk about? Texas, they're family run. Georgia, family run. So are we family run? Are we going to support one another? How are we going to move forward? By us supporting one another. And that's why I'm here today. So y'all have a good day.
Thank you. do we have people on Zoom? Nobody's on Zoom? Okay. Seeing no other public comment, then we're going to have commissioner comment, and we will start with Commissioner Jenkins.
I'm good for the moment.
Okay? Commissioner Smith.
Madam Chair, thank you. Two things this morning. And hard to kind of compete with some of the public this morning on a lot of the different topics that were raised. Anyway, first item I have this morning, we have a small restaurant in Jensen Beach that some years back built a tiki hut, whatever you want to call it, on the property that the restaurant exists on. Some point after that, code enforcement came and said that you were built into the setback, and we made them chop off half the tiki hut, which took half of their outdoor space, and reduced it down to half. They've been operating under that scenario for the last couple of years. There's some restoration work that has to be done to the tiki hut. And unfortunately, because of our setback standards and rules, they're not able to go back to where they were. The circumstances are kind of interesting. The side of the property sits on a street, so it's not adjacent to any other commercial building. It also abuts the back of the commercial shopping plaza, which is a parking lot for the commercial shopping plaza. So I'm asking the staff, or asking you all to support me, asking the staff to come to us with some sort of solution on how we deal with chicky huts on a commercial application. There are a couple out in Palm City that we've certainly kind of gotten around over the last couple of years. We had an issue down in Hope Sound some years back where we made them cut back that chicky hut, which was really unfortunate. I think we could have still worked around it even though it was into our right-of-way. But I'd like to at least have the opportunity to be able to address this to help one of our small businesses, because even though some of our restaurants are doing well, a lot of our restaurants are still really struggling, and this would be something that undoubtedly would help them if they could gain back that outdoor capacity. So first and foremost, and I think because of my conversations with staff, they're reluctant to go into this discussion, so I think we need the board, if you're willing, to at least ask staff to further investigate it and come back with some options on what we can do, generally speaking, with the tiki hut issue, but also relative to this restaurant's particular issue. Anybody all right with that, or no? Yes?
I certainly would defer to staff. It's not our job to micromanage staff's decisions, so I don't want to supersede their decisions. I don't think that that's my job.
Do they have options to bring?
I think this is one of those things where it's a difficult issue to get through because there are issues, but I don't want it to rest at a point where I've asked them, talked to them about seeing if there's something can do, and they're kind of going, well, we've kind of researched this, we're not sure if we can make this work, or we can't make this work. I'm not so sure that that's really the answer, and I'm one not to usually let down, at least until I've had an opportunity to really work it through to its final conclusion. But if you all don't want to do it, that's fine. I need to ask on behalf of our small business up there, and if I don't, then I feel like I'm not doing my job, regardless of whether staff says yes, no, or indifferent. I still feel like I need to push as far as I can push until we're told no.
I'm not familiar with the particular business or the circumstances, so I would have to hear more from staff. And
would you be willing to let them come back and at least have an agenda item to talk about it and to see what options are available?
I personally would.
Okay. That's 3. Just to clarify, our Hope Sound issue, I was working literally on a situation to allow that. Anita took that on her own to move that back the 1.5 feet, so that she did that on her own. I was in the middle of trying to make it work for her. So. I honestly, Harold, I wish that had come forward with this conversation because I was intimately involved in it too, and I thought what we forced them to do. We didn't force them to do it. I'll agree to disagree with you on that one. I was in the middle of that. Unfortunately, we have sunshine and we can't talk about it, but I certainly have another version, and I get it, but I appreciate it.
So then that sounds like the other version is going to come back in an
Some
item.
point soon, please.
Okay.
Because their hope is that his season is coming to an end, if it comes to an end, that they can get back on that project and get ready for next year. The last one, we had about 2.5 years ago, we had a near fatality hit and run out on Hutchinson Island in front of the Shores Hotel, the new hotel, a rebuilt hotel. Fortunately, the Sheriff's Department caught up with the individual that hit the woman in the crosswalk. And he, I think, was arrested, and there was more to follow after that. However, recently we had another significant crash go through the median out there just before the crosswalk out at the Shores. The hotel has sent a request to me to inquire with Florida Department of Transportation on lighting from just the roundabout, and I'll be perfectly clear because we went through this issue a couple of years ago, to immediately south of the splitter island that is adjacent to the Shores Hotel property. We light the roundabout. There's lighting going into the park, into the Gents Beach parking lot, but they would like to light from the roundabout down just to where the splitter island, which is about 1,000 feet south of the roundabout. I've talked to FDOT. I've talked to the district secretary. He asked, and I am more than happy to ask of you all to bring it to the board before we go any further. They would be more than willing to do a safety study to investigate what happened prior with the hit and run, but also with the most recent accident we had out there to be able to light at least that 1,000 foot. I say at least that 1,000 foot of the property line relative to the hotel. So I really kind of need your all's approval to concur that we'd ask FDOT to look into that. And then I will bring it to the MPO as well on the 16th and ask for their approval if you all agree that it's worthy of looking into.
Okay, Commissioner Hurd?
Yeah, is the reason that there's a problem there because the hotel put a facility across the street, so therefore there's a crosswalk there that's being used more often?
The facility, the parking that you're talking about, there were always tennis courts and parking on the west side of A1A. So there has always been, when the hotel prior was the Holiday Inn, there was always people moving back and forth between the tennis courts and the parking lot on the west side and on the east side. I would agree that perhaps because now it's all parking, that there's probably more staff walking back and forth between the west side and the east side. As it was, if you all remember, we did petition FDOT to lower the speed limit to 35, I believe, from 45 in that area because we knew that there would be more people going back and forth. At the end of the day, it really almost doesn't matter. We have an unsafe condition that we've got to do everything we can do to make it safer. I think, we certainly, I think, owe it to the hotel to at least explore with FDOT the options that would be available to us. To be perfectly clear, too, and I talked to Taryn, I think, about this yesterday, we would take on the maintenance cost of that lighting from FDOT's perspective. So it's not like it's cheap. They would do the installation, but we'd take on the ongoing maintenance of those lights.
One of the other concerns that I have, and it's a grave concern, is when we proposed to add additional lighting along A1A years ago, the residents of Hutchinson Island vehemently opposed the additional lighting. So I'm real reluctant to enter into this conversation again because I know how they felt. They felt very, very strongly. They filled the room with people who were opposed to additional lighting. So I'm very concerned about opening up this conversation again.
And that's exactly why I'm asking the question, Commissioner. We have a huge safety problem, and I am more than willing to debate that discussion with any group at any given time when we have our residents or our employees that are being struck by cars because we have an unsafe condition on a state highway. Safety comes first. The number one mantra of FDOT is zero fatalities, and safety is number one. I am certainly not living up to my part of this. if I knowingly, and as the folks talked from Rocky Point this morning, I mean, if we have an issue in Rocky Point and we haven't addressed it, and we know we have an issue, we're liable. And my concern is that we know we have a problem out there. We had a problem north of the roundabout that we dealt with probably 8-9 years ago. There was a child that was hit and killed north of this roundabout. And this is sort of a continuation of how do you deal with a lot of traffic on the island, especially in season. If you've all been out there, it's insane during season. How do we do what we can best do to protect both our employees and our residents?
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. Before this turns into the actual agenda item, I am not opposed to hearing more about the issue. Safety is a major concern of mine as well. I don't know if I would necessarily agree that it needs to be 1,000 feet of lighting, but lighting an intersection or a crosswalk section is probably a conversation worth having, so I'm willing to agree to hearing it. I do understand what Commissioner Hurd is saying. I was in this room at the MPO and the Commission packed for people that were opposed to the much grander lighting scheme, but I think what Commissioner Smith, he was here too, so it's not like he didn't know. A smaller lighting section where you can light a crosswalk. I've been through there. We've all been out on Hutchinson Island. It's pitch black at night, and I get the rationale for keeping it very low key, but at least for some span leading up to, including, and leading past, because in different directions, lighting the crosswalk section makes sense. So it definitely warrants a conversation.
I would agree.
So you want an agenda item to come back to discuss it?
Well, really what we're asking for, and I appreciate the conversation, what FDOT is asking for is a letter of support for them to initiate a safety study, to look at it, to bring us something back, to give us a proposal. It's not really to say we want to do 50 feet or 1,000 feet. It's more to say for them to formally ask them to do a safety study of that area. And
So you're asking for a letter for the chair to sign in support of the study? Okay.
Safety study.
And that doesn't commit us to anything. That just says to FDOT, the
Yes.
board acknowledges the idea that we're asking them to do it.
Okay.
It's not committing to it. It's not, and at the end of the day, again, if everybody changes their mind and we don't want to do it, we still have that option to do that.
Okay, great.
Thank you all very much.
More? Commissioner Campy?
Nothing.
Commissioner Hurd?
I'm set.
Ms. Krista?
No, ma'am. We're good.
Ms. Woods? Okay, all right. That brings us to our first item, and we're going to take a few things out of order today so we can clear the room. We are going to start with departmental number 4, discussion on a letter received from the mayor for the village of Indiantown to negotiate future provision of fire EMS services within the village of Indiantown.
Morning, Commissioners. Hi, Chair and Krista for the record. I did submit to you an agenda item which is fairly lengthy, just to provide the commissioners and anybody that's interested. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Miss Krista, while you're over there by yourself, is it possible for you to take your mask down? You're sounding very muffled.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I get in the habit of wearing it, but thank you. So I did an agenda item that I submitted to the board to just kind of lay out the history of our fire rescue services and kind of the thought process of the board. And given the fact that I've been here since 1987, I was actually part of the transition, if you will, from when we had a BLS, which is basic life support, separate from fire rescue. Yes, sir.
But you were also an intern and you were 12.
Yeah, I started at 12, as Commissioner Smith said. So the thought process back in 1997 was that we should bring all of those pieces together and have one system for the county, that just because you live in the northern area or the southern area or western area, you should get the same level of service as all the residents. And therefore, it was established that we would pay for this through ad valorem taxes with, we established a municipal service taxing unit, which is an MSTU, for the unincorporated area of Martin County specifically. And so we started the taxation, if you will, of our residents to provide the necessary funding for those fire rescue services. And we combined ALS and BLS with fire rescue. Our personnel became dual certified. we no longer had a separation between fire and EMS. Our employees became emergency medical technicians, as well as they go through fire school, so they can do dual purpose. And then we also increased our level of service by bringing in paramedics, and we're proud to say that we send paramedics on every call. So we provide that higher level of service, if you will, to our residents in Martin County. So when we look at where we are, you did get a letter from the mayor, and I see Mayor Janet Hernandez is here with Howard Brown, their village manager, as well as Susan Gibbs Thomas. And if I missed anybody that I didn't see come in, I apologize. So she sent a letter, Mayor Hernandez sent a letter to Chair asking if the board would be willing to negotiate the village's ad valorem taxes contribution to our fire rescue MSTU. So, and they want a response by tomorrow. So I had done the agenda item. It took me at least a week to put that together. Our agenda is structured in such a way that I had to get that to our agenda team 3 weeks in advance, so we put it on for today's meeting. So, as I said, these MSTUs were created not only for fire rescue, but we also did them for road maintenance, we also did them for stormwater maintenance, and we also did them for park maintenance, with the same thought process that the residents should all have the same level of service regardless of where they live. Prior to the MSTUs being created for these services, some commissioners would have parks that were a little bit more pristine because they would put their MSTU, their district money, into those facilities, whereas another commissioner may not have enough resources. Their tax base may not have been significant enough because, as you know, your districts are based on population, not tax base. So you could have a highly concentrated populated area that may not have the tax base that another individual could have by having a much more expansive district, because we need to reach out. Like Commissioner Jenkins, when we redistrict last time, he goes all the way from Hope Sound way out to Indiantown and back again. And the reason his district is so expansive is because we had to capture that population. So his tax base can be almost double of what Commissioner Hetherington may have, or Commissioner Hurd may have, or Commissioner Campy or Commissioner Smith, just given the area. So because of that dynamic, again, the commissioners wanted a more holistic approach to how we provide funding for these services and treat all of our residents equally. So can a municipality participate in our MSTU? Yes, they can. The town of Ocean Breeze passed an ordinance to be part of our fire MSTU, as did the village. So when the property appraiser provides you with her tax base on June 1 and July 1, it includes the tax base of those two municipalities. So when we're calculating the fire rescue MSTU millage rate, it includes those tax bases already. So we think of ourselves, Martin County, we act like a big municipality, if you will, because we provide so many of these services that normally you would have a county of our size. We might have more than 5 municipalities. You might have double that. You look at other areas, Broward County, only 2% of Broward County is unincorporated. The rest of it is municipalities. So we operate 87% of the services that we provide are to the residents outside of the municipalities. With fire rescue included, it goes up a little bit to 88%. So we are the taxing authority, as I said. We determine what the millage rate is, we levy the taxes, we collect those taxes, and then we operate those services, and they get approved through your budget process. And that millage rate is applied to across the board. So you have circumstances where if you have a home that's valued higher than another home, even though you might be next door to one another, you're both 3-2, let's say, you're both on a quarter-acre lot, and this one individual bought their home in 2 years ago, and the other individual's been there since 1990. The one from 1990 is going to be paying less because they've had the advantage of being homestead over those that years of time. But yet when they dial 911, they get the same complement of services, they get the same response as the person next door who could be paying, and most likely is paying a greater amount into the fire rescue MSTU. So when we look at our station operations, because we've heard from some folks that, well, I don't get it. Your budget's X and you divide it by 11 stations. Therefore, everybody should just contribute that dollar amount. Well, it doesn't work that way. We have Fire Rescue Administration. You have Chief Chinchuli here with Matt Resch, our finance guru. And then we also have Kevin Parks, who was a captain out at Indiantown. And Kevin most recently has decided to come up and try his expertise at administration. So we're going to see how that works out for him. But you have that administration cost. You also have the cost of legal support, my support, payroll, the various things. So they do an indirect cost study, and you have to layer those expenses in there. And so we include those in the fund so that we can capture those expenses. You have their operations, fleet maintenance. Matt Resch, he oversees the fleet maintenance portion. And so we do that. We have all of their capital. We have your CIP that you'll be looking at later today, includes the replacement of apparatus. We also have in our capital program the replacement or renovations to the station costs. This year, as you know, we're moving forward with 4 stations being renovated, which it's time to do that, plus a training facility. So we continue to move forward with those large expenditures. So out in Indiantown, specifically, they have a dedicated station. You heard a woman speak this morning about her concern over tropical farms being pulled off and going out to Indiantown, and then they had a structure fire in Foxwood, and getting that response. So they have more personnel at Station 24, which is the Indiantown station. They have 7 per shift. Most of our stations have 5, unless we have a need that's been where we have a busier station. We might upstaff that, put another apparatus there and additional staff. We also have backup. These move-ups occur, as you heard that woman speak this morning. The tropical farms had to go out to Indiantown to address another event. And so when they do that, we start staging those other apparatuses up so that we can still maintain our response time. And then their industry standard for a structure fire is 2 fire engines, a ladder, and 15 personnel. So when you think about having the ability to pull on 15 personnel when there's a structure fire, where do you get them from? And again, it's from those other stations that we have. So there's also 2 ambulances out there. There's additional apparatus. The 2 brush trucks, they're out there because we're concerned about the water pressure and flow should there be an event and require the use of hydrants. So we do have those trucks out there in the tanker. We also have, we're very concerned about the insurance services office, ISO. You heard about that from some of the emails that you received. That's based on a travel distance. Again, that ISO rating is the way it is because of Martin County's complement of services that we're able to provide. So we look at our industry standards. We look at all the things that go into response, and it's not just fire, it's emergency services. I think over 85% of our calls are medical. So having that expertise, having those paramedics, having those individuals that can respond, having the individuals that can treat patients while they're being transported to the hospital is imperative to the services that we provide. So the millage rate is determined by how much ad valorem is needed to balance that fund. We have other fees. We have these ambulance transport fees. I know when somebody's transported, your insurance nine times out of 10, or whatever your health insurance is billed, and they pay for that ambulance fee. We also, through Matt Resch's ingenuity, he has worked on these PEMT funds that you've heard him talk about. We've been successful in getting over $500,000 coming in with those. We also have a lot of grants. You approve tons of grants on your agendas every single meeting. And those, we put all those into our fund, and then whatever is left that needs to be funded with ad valorem, we then use that ad valorem, and that establishes your millage rate. So the village has, for a while now, been telling us that they think they pay too much, which I understand that comment, although I don't believe that there's an understanding of
the tax system, and that's the way we fund fire rescue. So we got roughly this year, based on their tax base, a little over $5.3 million is paid into the fund from the tax base of the Village of Indiantown. Recognizing that 95.4% of those taxable values are from industrial and commercial. And so when you look at what the residential portion is, it's in the $200,000 range. And I know my conversations with the individuals that have large industrial site out there are very concerned because we have had to respond to major incidents out there. And having the extrication devices, having the additional hazmat, having all the personnel that train with them, that understand that if there's an incident, this is what we're going to be faced with, is paramount to their operation and their insurance requirements. So we had an ordinance. Through our research, we found the ordinance from 1997 that is pretty clear. It lays out, again, it was developed so that there would be a holistic approach to how we fund fire rescue, and there'd be a holistic approach to how we provide services to all the residents in Martin County. And so everybody receives the same level of service, but we pay for it through ad valorem taxes. And the millage rate is the millage rate. It's given to everybody across the board. So the village did have a meeting on the 27th. They have a consultant that had provided them with options. And the presentation that I got, which was done just the beginning of this year, unfortunately had numbers that were a few years stale. So when you actually updated those numbers and put the accurate numbers in there, we proved to be a less expensive alternative for the village residents and the village, those individuals that are in the unincorporated area of western Martin County. So their option was number 4, which you heard someone speak to it today. It was a hybrid of contracted services and paid personnel. We believe that it will be a reduced level of service. It did not include any costs for Martin County to provide any kind of backup, which they would have to pay us for. So if we're going to respond or be expected to respond, should their whatever they've got out there is being transporting a patient or called to another scene, we would have to back up, but there's a cost to that, and they would have to pay for that. So they're talking about possibly putting us on notice next year, which would be October 2022, and we're going through the process now, Chief and his staff, looking at the call load for Station 24. We're trying to decide whether, we can stay in the station that we have out there. There's absolutely no reason why we can't stay there. But we want to strategically place ourselves where we're going to have the higher call load, if you will, to that unincorporated area. And then if this goes forward, the county will no longer be responsible for the tangible personal property grant that we currently have with FP&L for the fire MSTU portion. You remember when they came to us and asked for that rebate, it included the countywide taxes as well as the fire MSTU, and they get a 50% reduction on that fire MSTU. So that would go away, and this year it was $780,000 roughly. So in my conversations with the village manager, it was communicated to us that we provide urban level of service to the residents of Martin County, and that Indiantown is really a rural area, and so the services could be more of a rural nature. When my conversations with Chief on this, he says, yeah, but the population is concentrated. It's more like an urban area. So when you look at where it's like the city of Stewart. Your residents are concentrated into a general area. So it's not rural. It's an urban response that they need. And we've heard from residents. They're very concerned. We understand. We appreciate the fact that they like the service that they get going into this incorporation. It was never initially discussed that they would take over fire rescue. And so I have this agenda item. I did provide it to the village manager back on the 26th of March. As we understand, it was never really distributed to the council members. and Commissioner Jenkins took it upon himself to do that. So they had a meeting on this past Saturday. I have no idea what the dialogue was, nor have I circled back around to listen to that meeting. So in conclusion, we're prepared if they place us on notice. I've been preparing for this for a couple years, so we've been setting aside our fund balance as we move forward, getting our reserves healthy in that fund so that we would not have a major impact or have to raise our millage rate. We believe, in consultation with legal, that the ordinance is pretty clear. Could the board change the ordinance? Absolutely. But what would be the basis for that? As Commissioner Jenkins has communicated in his meetings with the council, why should the residents of Hope Sound pay more because the village of Indiantown is paying less, yet they have a higher level of service out there? So how do you convey that to your constituents? And so we will continue to address the western area, but we will need those agreements that if we're going to be expected to back them up, that we have something in place to cover our expenses. So, my early conversations with the village manager, I was trying to decide whether or not there was anything that we could do. And in consultation with Matt Resch, we talked about maybe we could offer them the ambulance fees that are collected in that area. And so we were looking at that, and that was a couple $100,000. And then I thought, well, we probably could tap into some of the other fees, like the PEMT fees or something else like that. Maybe we could garner about $500,000 to offer. And when I made that offer to the village manager, it was communicated back to me that that was not enough, that they were looking for about 3 times that, which would be about $1.5 million, which for me, coming from a financial background, I just don't know how we make those numbers work. So staff's recommendation at this point, I think, would be to have the chair just send a letter to the mayor and let him know that it did come to the board as she asked today, and that we desire to continue to operate fire rescue services and pay for those services as per the ordinance of 1997. Now, we did hear about a joint meeting today. That's purely up to the purview of the board. That's it.
Commissioner comments?
I have lots of commissioner comments.
Commissioner Campy.
We have
We have 2 public speaker forms. If you would like to speak on the item, please fill out a public comment form. I will go ahead and take the forms now. Howard Brown is our first speaker, and Howard will be followed by Janet Hernandez. And again, I'd like to acknowledge today we have from the Village Council joining us, we have the Mayor, Janet Hernandez, and we have Council Member Susan Thomas Gibbs.
Gibbs-Thomas.
Susan Gibbs-Thomas.
Morning, Madam Chair. Can the mayor go before I do? If that's okay with you?
Sure, we can.
Good morning, Chairperson Hetherington and Honorable County Commissioners. My name is Janet Hernandez, and I'm the mayor of the Village of Indiantown. I am joined here today by Councilmember Susan Gibbs-Thomas. We are all very pleased to be here this morning, and we are hopeful that our efforts today will result in improved interactions between our 2 agencies as it relates to the delivery of fire and EMS services. Article 7, Section 2B of the Florida Constitution states the following. Municipalities shall have governmental and corporate powers to enable them to conduct municipal government, perform municipal functions, and render municipal services, and may exercise any power for municipal purposes except as otherwise provided by law. As you all know, the village incorporated in 2017 and has chosen to contract for its fire and EMS services through Martin County. Under the terms of this contractual relationship, the village was originally charged $5.9 million for its first year of service, and this charge has been reduced to $5.3 million for the current year due to the reduction in the tangible personal property tax levied against FPNL. The entire adopted budget for the village in fiscal year 2020 to 2021 has a total general fund expenditure of $4.9 million. Our fire rescue charge exceeds our entire general fund expenditures. As a new and growing community, we have many basic needs, from road improvements to water and sanitary systems, parks and sidewalks, planning, emergency management, and others. From this perspective, you can see why we are evaluating the cost of delivering fire and EMS services. As we began to evaluate alternatives to deliver these services, we first attempted to negotiate reduction in costs with the county administrator. I'm sorry to say that these efforts have been met with obstructive tactics and extreme lack of cooperation. We have attempted to obtain a true cost estimate for the operation of Martin County Station Number 24, which services both the village and a sizable area in unincorporated Martin County. It took the county administrator's office nearly 15 months to provide this information, and only last week, after I personally made an additional request through Commissioner Jenkins, did we receive this information. Unfortunately, the information we received was extraordinarily vague, and we believe the cost accounting was excessive and inaccurate. We requested that additional detail be provided to validate these estimates, and to date, this information has not been received. For example, the cost of the station's operation was not prorated to account for the service responsibilities outside the village. Our analysis estimates that more than 30% of the workload of the station is outside of the village. In addition, when we began talking about alternative fire and EMS service delivery, we were abruptly asked to vacate our village offices in the county building in Indiantown. We were also told that emergency 911 services, another county-wide general fund function, would not be provided if the village were to discontinue its contract with the county. In addition, our historically black and brown volunteer fire station in Booga Park, which was operational in the village long before the establishment of Martin County Fire Rescue, has been recently rezoned and is now restricted by the county for use as a fire station. Regardless of these tactics, we are here today to let you know that we would welcome the opportunity to discuss these and other issues, begin the process of finding a balance that will allow us to continue our contracted service relationship for fire and rescue. We are, however, very much resolved as an independent government entity and taking the necessary steps towards providing an alternative for these services. I believe in speaking on behalf of the Indiantown Village Council that if the county were to offer acceptable monetary and self-related concessions, that this contractual relationship could be maintained. I would like to present a series of questions that, when answered, I believe set the tone for our ongoing relationship. Though you may choose to not answer each of these questions this morning, I hope that you will evaluate each of these issues in greater detail because they are of critical importance to the village of Indiantown.
Madam Mayor, I just want to try to, since this is still public comment,
Yes.
wrap it up, and we have a lot of lights on up here.
Okay. So these are the questions. Does the county commission intend to maintain the position that if the village opts out of the fire rescue MSTU, you will deny this predominantly minority community access to 911 dispatch services? Does the Martin County Commission intend to prohibit its regional hazardous materials response team from responding into the village of Indiantown if the village opts out of the fire MSTU? Will the Martin County Commission continue to prohibit the use of Booga Park Fire Station to be utilized as a fire station for a newly formed independent fire department? Does the Martin County Commission intend to permit its employees to either obstruct or inhibit the village in acquiring the necessary EMS ambulance transportation licensing that is processed through Martin County Fire Rescue? Does the Martin County Board of County Commissioners intend to not honor its commitment to assist the village of Indiantown under the provisions of the statewide mutual aid program? If the village of Indiantown opts out of the fire rescue MSTU and develops an alternative delivery system, is Martin County considering the closure of Fire Station 24? And
Madam-
finally, is
Madam
the
Mayor?
commission truly interested in pursuing options that you can continue a financial offset for the cost of fire rescue services to the village? And you will be willing to direct the county administrator to sit down with the village representatives to form this agreement? Thank you for your considerations.
Thank you. Now I'm going to try to go in the order of the lights appeared. Yes, so,
Old light.
okay, we,
I'd like to hear from him first.
did you need to speak prior to public comment?
No, I'd like to hear
And
what Mr. Brown has to say.
Mr. And just to be mindful that, that this is public comment, let's try to keep it within that window.
Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council, commission, all other appointed officials. Just want to respond to a couple of things that the county administrator said earlier with regard to our relationship with respect to the number of calls that came in to Fire Station 24. We had to hire a fire rescue consultant to review complicated data. And in that analysis that year, there were 1,200 calls that came in. Of those 1,200 calls, there were 4 fires. One was a house fire that burned to the ground. It was in Booker Park area. The other 3 were brush fires. And, as far as the call volume, we don't know what the call volume is because we've requested information as far as 12 months ago, specific information on call volume, response times, you name it. And that information is very critical in order for us to evaluate fire rescue, because without that information, we don't know what we're paying for. And so these are things that I'm asking that we try to work together in terms of either directing the staff to negotiate with us, because the staff, I believe, has acted in good faith, but they may not have the authority to do it. And so that's why we're here this morning, is to see if the county commission is interested in negotiating with us. If the county commission is, we're all for it. So that's where we're at. And as far as a higher level of service, the option that we're proposing is not less. We are looking at privatizing EMS. We are also looking at a hybrid firefighting department, which includes paid people, not just volunteers. And so that's all I have to say. If you have questions, I'll be more than try to address them or answer them.
Thank you. And I have one more public speaker form, and that is Susan Gibbs Thomas.
You don't need him staying in there.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. And I'll just be real quick. You won't have to buzz me. I just want it to be clear. I am here today on my own. I'm not with anybody. I am on my own. Because besides being a council member in Indiantown, I live in Indiantown. And you have heard from other Indiantown residents. And my hope is that this commission will be willing to continue some grace as we fram around, and in 3 years we're still trying to get going, and agree to meet with us that we can move forward with this. And I apologize for any combative attitude. I hope moving forward that will get better. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You can start with them.
Okay, Ms. Christie, you have your light on.
Well, I don't know where to begin, but there's a couple of things that were stated that were not accurate, and so that makes it hard for me to respond. For instance, the county did not abruptly tell the village that they had to move out of our facility. I had a conversation with Mr. Brown, and I told him that we were considering doing that because they had hired so many people that the clerk of the circuit court was no longer comfortable with her employees being in that facility. They have a safe, they have other things and they had to be CJIS certified. And he communicated to me when I said that they were buying some property and he was going to put modulars on that property and they were ready to move out. And so I told him that I would follow up with a memo on that. And that's how that took place. So when we have these kinds of events that get somehow skewed, it's very difficult for me to entertain a conversation with an individual that it doesn't seem the conversation keeps changing. Ms. Woods would like to address some of the other comments that were made.
Yeah, first of all, we don't contract with Indiantown. I'm not sure. Initially, when Indiantown incorporated, there was a glitch in their incorporation authorization, which did not allow it to expand the MST, be part of the MSTU. So in the short run, we did enter into a contract. It hasn't been true for years. The way that we levy the MSTU now is the village, and I'm not sure why the village doesn't know this, they passed an ordinance and we have a resolution and an interlocal agreement that allows for that MSTU to extend into the municipal boundaries. That's how it's done. It's part of our MSTU legally. It's not a contract. So that's part one. Regarding the Booker Park building, I've talked with Indiantown's attorney. I've asked him to correct the record. When we turned over facilities to the newly formed village, we have an interlocal agreement, and I would direct both the Honorable Mayor and the Town Manager to that interlocal agreement, which specifically has a paragraph that talks about the use for that building. We agreed to deed it, but it had deed restrictions for the use. The idea was it was an old building. Ms. Krishna's told me, it doesn't have bathrooms in it. The bathrooms are outside. The idea was that it's adjacent to a park and it would be used in connection with that. It wasn't ever intended for it to be used as a fire station for this purpose. When we saw about a year or two ago that the then town manager had included that facility as the fire station, I reached out to the Indiantown attorney. We pointed out that there apparently was some confusion in the deed that we had prepared. We didn't have all of the interlocal language, and so we corrected the deed, not in any punitive way. And I'll go ahead and represent that I've talked with the village attorney. It wasn't punitive. It was as a way to avoid continued confusion, because it's very clear that the village agreed to that restriction in the interlocal, and we merely clarified it. That's all we were doing, because what we didn't want was for them to get too far down the road and there be a whoopsie. So that's why we did that. And I have a couple of times communicated with the village attorney and asked that that be clarified, because that wasn't my office's intent, not ever. I can certainly, at some point, Ms. Krista and I can respond to some of the questions or arguments in the mayor's speech, but we have not at any time denied what services the Village of Indiantown is rightfully entitled to with 911, et cetera. I've communicated that to the village attorney, so I'm not quite sure why we're now getting that question, but I'm happy to provide those emails and my conversations. But I want it to be more than clear that not at any time was this meant from our end as combative. We were just explaining that legally, yes, we can do aid in some situations, but there's automatic aid, which is in the case of a big emergency and all the entities go on. But mutual aid uses the term mutual, which means you assist and we assist.
Same complement.
Same complement, which is what we have with the city of Stewart. It would be unfair for and I'm not saying this would happen, but for a municipality to understaff its fire rescue and then expect that other areas would assist and for no payment. And that's the difference. It's a nuance. And so I just want to make sure that we're clear on this. Ms. Krista gave an excellent presentation about the MSTU ordinance. And, I've talked with our assessment special counsel. They've been the same all the way through. This was on purpose, that everybody pays the same. There's no special rates for any entities. The example where we're treating someone the same is the town of Ocean Breeze. It's based on an MSTU. They didn't ask for a discount. And I just want to make sure that we've been, that everybody understands that we're following our ordinance. And from my perspective, it wouldn't be my recommendation that you change that to give anybody a special discount at the expense of others.
Right, and some of the data that was referenced, the reason we were not able to provide is because that's not how we generate our numbers. That's data that we don't keep, again, because we're part of a system. There's no reason to keep some of this by station or the things that they were asking for, and I see Matt shaking his head because Matt was involved. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Camping.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. This agenda item or this conversation, I'm going to take the mask off if you don't mind, it's hard to speak with it on. This agenda item and this conversation, this topic has been brewing around not only in the village of Indiantown and the unincorporated areas that surround it, which are part of my district, District 5. Through my political career, I've had a larger portion of the village of Indiantown prior to the last reorganization with the census, where a majority of the actual village went to Commissioner Jenkins in District 3. I will tell you just in a brief history for folks that are paying attention that might not know the history here. Many of us, if not all of us, supported the concept of incorporation for Indiantown simply because of the fact that there were commissioners, and I can go back to Commissioner Weberman and Commissioner Hayes and then Commissioner Jenkins and myself and Commissioner DiTilizzi, who represented Indiantown in District 3 and 5, had a very strong affinity for the folks of Indiantown. And when I was in office the first time, there was a lot of talk about incorporating back then in the mid-2000s, and then I think that conversation went away for a while because Commissioner Hayes and I made it our passion to really support the folks and what they were looking to do in Indiantown. And then there was potentially some change in direction and influence out in Indiantown. And when I came back into office after being gone for 4 years, there was a movement for incorporation. And I call them the founding fathers, if you will, Art Mattson and Thelma Waters and Scott Watson and the Powers family. They really pushed hard, and we had support. Commissioner Smith was a huge advocate up in Tallahassee and everywhere else that he needed to go to support that decision that they'd be allowed to sort of control and rule themselves out there. And we used to talk about the fact that it was Indiantown's turn. It was their time. And so I was in support of that. And then as the process went forward and was successful, there was some conversations and negotiations that needed to take place amongst, what buildings would we utilize and how would we, work out road situations. There was a lot of conversation, and we don't need to get into this particular topic today about the water and sewer issues of Indiantown. I know Jeff Leslie well. There was a lot of conversation with our utility department on how we could service them that would be the most financially economical way to do it, but also offering a very high level of service and quality for water and sewer services. They chose a different direction, and I stayed out of all of those conversations in that debate. When there was talk about Big Mound Park and other park facilities, I do remember saying, look, the members of and the residents of Indiantown had paid their taxes as Martin County residents all along, and I was in favor of basically handing over those facilities, and we've done that. The conversation in regards to the governmental annex out there where the tax collector is, we were okay with allowing Indiantown to sort of get on their feet and create a brand new municipality. It was a very exciting time, not just for the folks in Indiantown, but for all Martin County residents, especially us that participated in helping. I was there the day that the original council was sworn in the Indiantown Middle School auditorium, and stayed out of the election, didn't endorse or support individuals that were running and wished them all well, and am friendly with some of them. I've known Jackie Clark well before she was an elected official. Anthony Dowling had sat on boards with us in an advisory position. I've known Janet Hernandez, their current mayor, and Susan Gibb Thomas and Guyton. I didn't know them ahead of time, but I would count them respectfully as friends and would offer any assistance I could. Now, like anyone else, and even here, the five of us, we don't necessarily always agree. I think that there's been decisions made in Indiantown that I might have voted differently on different things, but I have made it my business to steer clear of the fledgling municipalities startup. But there's one thing that I will not, and I mentioned this to Ms. Krista in the past and to the chief. When it comes to fire safety and public safety in general, that's job one. And so if I believe that the decision of the majority of the board and their manager is heading the overall village residents in the wrong direction, I will stand up and speak up. When I was campaigning, before the incorporation, I had the opportunity to walk with fire rescue personnel all through Indianwood, knocking on doors. They were doing an informational drive, and I was out meeting and greeting, and the folks in Indianwood were very, very serious and very appreciative of the level of service that they have, as all residents do. I was the one actually involved in the conversation and the initiation of transferring the old Booker Park Fire Station to Indiantown, because that was in my district at the time, and Jackie was working as the representative, the director of a not-for-profit, and she invited me to come out there, and we looked at it. They had done some voting. They used to hold election voting in that facility. It was very run down. We talked about how we could collaborate, and then I was the one that instigated the fact that we should just give it over. There was no talk at the time of that it would turn into eventually a fire station. It was meant to be a community center, and it made perfect sense. And so it was, that's why we have lawyers and a legal department, so that they can look into the future and craft language in such a way that they can say, well, maybe this will be an issue. And so it was very specific on what it was meant to be. Now, that doesn't mean that a conversation couldn't take place in the future on collaboration. I'm a big believer in collaboration, but not in this particular case. I think the council, although they are well-meaning and thoughtful individuals, they're new to this. We have commissioners up here that have been up here for decades. Many of us are certified, either advanced or have gone through governmental training on how to look at these scenarios and the services that the government is supposed to offer its citizens. Our staff, Ms. Krista, how many years have you been with the county?
Going on 34, sir.
34 years. Our fire chief's got 25 years. Ms. Woods has been representing the county in one capacity or another for many, many, many years. Our staff normally retire. Mary Kay is retiring. She's been here 30 years. We all understand Martin County. We all consider Indiantown part of our family. But I think the decision to somehow privatize is a grave error. We had a commissioner here several years ago that when he first came into office, he had the same concept for Martin County Fire Rescue, that he thought we should hire WAC and HUD or one of these other outside organizations to do contractual services. So I did some homework to find out what other municipalities had done that. And it's a terrible idea. Now, I'm not saying it's a failure in every single case, but in my opinion, at least, it's a terrible idea to hire a consultant who was probably, coming in there to try to figure out a way to do this. And some of the language in the back and forth, I read the emails, I see the news articles that are written in a newsletter that gives us a pretty good insight into what happens. I have not gone to your commission meetings, but I will stand very firmly against any movement to privatize it. Equate it like this: contracted services for EMS or something like that. When you have a perfect system that is award-winning and has had fantastic coverage, we get very, very few, if any, complaints about how that service works. If you had a situation where you were being underserved or poorly served, I could see you'd have no choice. But when it works perfectly, why, in an effort to save some money, which is also arguable that maybe there is no savings to be had out there, unless you look at the numbers from one direction or another. But that to me would be the equivalent of giving up your sheriff's office service and protection to hire security guards. That's to me what a contracted service of EMS. They don't live in the community necessarily. They are employees of a corporation that could be in Pahokee one week and Indiantown the next week and Belglade or up in the Panhandle. You have no idea. I've done our research when that came up here. It's not a good strategy, and I understand that elected officials would, be interested in hearing from their manager, because we're not all experts on every single topic, and we have to rely on the advice and counsel of our manager. And in that particular case, they've also hired an outside consultant. We've never had the opportunity to hear about that. We represent the folks that are in the incorporated village of Indiantown. They're also our constituents as well. And if you want to have a joint meeting in the Hidden Oaks, in the Indiantown Middle School or in Warfield Elementary School auditorium, and invite every single resident, I think you'll pack the room. And if you invite us, I'll come, because I would stand with our fire rescue. I've been out there when there was a huge brush fire, and it licked right on the doorsteps of Indian Wood, and it was one of the most frightening events that I've ever personally experienced. You see on television about brush fires, you have no idea what it's like, how ferocious it is when it's right at your doorstep. And the concept that somehow you have a hybrid version of volunteers and contracted services that would offer the same level of protection, both medically and fire, for your residents is I don't believe valid. Because we got a couple of excellent emails from residents out there, and I won't get into all the details, but one talks about the ISO rating for what you would pay in your property, in your homeowner's insurance. Those ratings are very, very important. So even if you could find some savings for the residents of Indiantown, their homeowner's insurance could go up and eat up those savings. The other thing is response time. If you make a mistake in your decision making for parks and recreation, it's not going to be the end of the world. If you make a mistake with road paving, sometimes that can be inconvenient, or there could be some safety issues. But this is your primary responsibility, public safety. And so for me, the other issue that Indiantown, in terms of rural versus urban, Indiantown has our largest industries located either in the incorporated portion of Indiantown or the unincorporated and the outskirts. The biggest, most heavy-duty industrial impact that the county has is located in your neighborhoods out there. What level of volunteer service and hired professionals contracted professionals could you bring out in an emergency? We had a Diesel explosion in Stewart. We had to call in every resource we could think of. Instantaneously, they had to be out there. How would you do that? Then the other thing about farming accidents and ATV accidents and equestrian accidents and brush fires, and I've heard a lot of conversation, well, you have a mutual aid agreement with the city of Stewart. It'll be just like the city of Stewart. No, it won't. We overlap with the city of Stewart. We completely surround them. They're right here. You're in the city of Stewart right now in this building. You guys are in a beautiful portion of Martin County, but you're 20 miles away. When I was a commissioner the first time, actually just as I was getting ready to come back, there was a big controversy here in the county, on the coast, and also in Indiantown. It was called the Fitch Report. The county had hired consultants to come in and do a study on how we could somehow, quote unquote, make our system more efficient. The recommendations I thought were ludicrous, but one of them was to remove a rescue, or in lay terms, an ambulance from Indiantown. So I thought about the example that if you had, God forbid, a family member had a heart attack or a medical emergency, and the first ambulance from Indiantown came out to rescue you and now drive you all the way into the hospital, you would not want to be the second emergency that morning, because someone would have to come out from Tropical Farms or Palm City or Hobe Sound. And any of us that have suffered medical emergencies understand that minutes are hours. And so why you would mess with this, our Miss Krista, I don't believe that she has controversial or a vindictive bone in her body. She has been trying very hard to work on many different topics to make the transition to Indiantown's government easier. But she's not a pushover. She's not going to get pushed around. She represents the five of us. She doesn't let us push her around either. So I'm proud of what she and Miss Woods have done in terms of protecting the county as a whole. Both of them also represent every resident of the village of Indiantown as Martin County residents. So I don't know if you could tell by my passion and my comments, I am 100% opposed to anything that would allow Indiantown to move off of what their current fire rescue situation is currently. If there's some negotiations to be had, fine. I won't ever stand with a straight face in Indiantown and tell your residents that I thought what this path that you're going down is a good idea. After that, you can do whatever you want, but I will march in the streets with the folks that are opposed to privatizing fire rescue. It's a terrible idea.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Campy. And I'll just put my comments. I don't see any other lights yet. I couldn't restate what you just said more appropriately, and I certainly will not try. I agree with you 100%. You know, certainly, and I'm a fourth generation Martin County native. Grew up right in Martin County, in Little Ranch Estates. So I have the utmost affinity for the people of Indiantown, for the community I grew up with, and I almost take offense to the fact that Martin County would ever deny services to the community of Indiantown. I don't see that happening in any way to this board. I can't wrap my head around what is driving this conversation, because every conversation that I have with village residents and unincorporated residents in Indiantown, every single one of them had said, we are so happy with the level of service. So for the life of me, I can't understand. You know, I respect the council for doing the due diligence and looking, you know, at what kind of savings could be realized. That's their job, absolutely. But I don't understand what's driving this conversation home, and I certainly would show up and participate in a meeting, a joint meeting with the village council, because overwhelmingly, almost 100%, I have heard from residents inside and outside the village boundaries that they want to continue their level of service. So, and we represent both residents inside and outside the boundaries. And somebody mentioned, one of the speakers earlier mentioned, you know, whether or not Indiantown had gotten its fair shake at times. And I would say that I would be the first one to agree that there, in the past, when certain boards, you know, sat up in Martin County, maybe Indiantown didn't get its fair shake always. And I would give you a personal story that there's a personal consequence, you know, with Indiantown maybe not having the attention it needed to grow its industry base. You know, a direct result was a loss of jobs. Those jobs that were lost, some of those went to my family members, and those family members ended up moving states away. So there are times that we're separated because maybe for the lack, you know, of, or had there been more attention given to letting Indiantown's industry develop, that would not have been a direct result. So I understand the sentiment of having, you know, looking at Indiantown getting its fair shake. But I would say that overwhelmingly 100% residents are saying that they appreciate the level of service. And I think anything less than that delivering them would be a continuation of Indiantown not getting its fair shake. So I would stand with Commissioner Campy and residents both inside the village and outside the village that they have said that the level of service they're getting is what they have wanted. And so I would, again, I 100% agree with you. Commissioner Jenkins.
Obviously, Indiantown is my particular district. It's my job to represent the people in Indiantown as well as the people in Hope Sound as well as the people in Canal Point equally. I've tried to do everything I can do. I've facilitated Zoom meetings with Ms. Krisden, myself, and at least 4 of the 5 council people trying to state the actual facts, and it's very obvious by listening to the mayor and Mr. Brown that somehow that didn't set. I'd be more than happy to have a joint meeting with Indiantown. If you facilitate it, I suggest you have a pretty large venue, because I suggest that I know that there's a lot of folks that are going to show up. The other thing I'd like to, if you guys decide to do this, that maybe you help me and Commissioner Smith and every other commissioner that's sitting up here that represents other communities, such as Hope Sound, Jensen Beach, and help us with a town hall to justify with a straight face how I'm going to tell my residents in Hope Sound that have absolutely no industrial, does not have a power plant, that requires a larger more intense level of service, why they, at the end of the day, are going to be paid more, or why you're asking them to pay more to subsidize your community, which actually needs more services. So I would ask that you also come to our communities and speak to our residents throughout the county and unincorporated Martin County to help us. Because to be honest with you, I don't know how I would approach my people in my other unincorporated areas with a straight face and explain this to them. So if you guys want to have a joint meeting, I will be there. I think by the shaking of heads that I see at the dais here, we'll all be there. Please tell us when you want it to happen, and we're there. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I certainly don't want to try to repeat nor cover everything that's been covered. I agree with, generally speaking, almost everything that's been said, actually everything that's been said. I will share with you, or I certainly will share with Indiantown, I spent a better part of a year and a half working on your incorporation, pretty much pulling every favor, every relationship I'd built over 20 years in Tallahassee to move that item forward when there was absolutely zero support in Tallahassee for allowing another community to incorporate. And I say zero. We had, generally speaking, all the leadership opposed to what we were trying to do. And we made the argument that if there was ever a community that deserved the opportunity to be its own jurisdiction, have its own place in time, it was Indiantown, and has been Indiantown. There have been, as Ed pointed out, certainly for the 20 plus years I've been here, and prior to that, there has always been the conversation about Indiantown incorporating. And I felt really obligated and really committed to the idea that if that's what Indiantown wanted, then by no means was it my position as a county commissioner or as us as a commission as a whole to get in the way of that effort happening. And so that's why on countless times I went to Tallahassee at 4 o'clock in the morning to go testify for a 10-minute period of time and turn around and drive back for 5.5 hours, because I felt it was that important that you all got the best shot that you could get. And as it turned out, it worked. Everybody participated in their own way up here and did their bit. And I think what that should show Indiantown, or at least during this conversation, is that the idea somehow that this board or our administration would somehow punitively look at this as saying we're going to do something to get even with Indiantown or something's wrong, I can't, as the chair said, I can't possibly imagine where that's coming from. It goes against pretty much every piece of fabric that this county operates under. You have two of the most stand-up individuals in administration that I've worked with anywhere in the state of Florida as our administrator and county attorney. There is nothing underhanded. There is no want to do anything to punish, to be punitive. It doesn't exist here. It exists in other municipalities or in other parts of our state, but it doesn't exist here. And I've shared with the administrator, I've said, look, throughout this entire conversation that this has been going on, if somehow we have failed Indiantown through this process, if somehow they believe, Indiantown, their elected officials believe that they have a better answer than we have, I'm not going to stand in front of that. I agree with my other commissioners. I think it's a really bad choice. We have spent decades putting together, for our scale, our size of a community, a world-class, first-class organization of fire rescue. They are the very best at what they do. And I just, I can't imagine if you lived in a community, you lived in a county that had something like that, why would you ever mess with it? I mean, I see our sheriff guys out in the sheriff's department out in the audience. It would be the same thing. Ed touched on that as well. Why would you ever say we don't really need or want the sheriff's department because we think we can do it better than they can? I'm disappointed. I use the word sad because I really believed in what we did. I really believed that this effort we put forth and tried to give Indiantown the best opportunity they could get to become incorporated has become so soured. I don't know why. And it's certainly not from my behalf, and I know from my other commissioners sitting here, none of us have any ill will towards Indiantown whatsoever. We have done things. I remember the covered rodeo discussion and how we pushed money around and got super creative because we, the board and administration, thought it was important to do that. Indiantown wanted it, and we said, okay, by God, we're going to figure out how to make that happen, and did. I don't know if the instance that Commissioner Hetherington, Chair Hetherington, was talking about was the power plant that we lost out there or not. I was sitting here on the board, and there was another board that decided that wasn't good for Martin County, and certainly clearly wasn't good for Indiantown. That was a huge mistake for us in Martin County and a huge mistake for Indiantown. I fought for that. I supported it. I worked on it with them. And so I could point to countless things over 20 years that we have done, and I have done personally, to try to, at least as much as I, as a county-wide elected official, can do to support Indiantown. For 20 years, I probably missed 20, maybe, Chamber of Commerce breakfasts out in Indiantown, maybe out of 20 years, maybe not even 20. I always put myself out there if there was a reason to be out in Indiantown, if it was important in Indiantown, to be there. And we all do what we can do to make sure that we put ourselves in a position to support when we can and when it's appropriate and where it's right. So I understand the request for a joint meeting. I get it. I don't know, other than putting this back on again and having the same dialogue, what it's going to achieve, other than maybe a whole bunch of people that won't watch this meeting or won't have the ability to watch this meeting, might come in person to hear it in person and see it in person. What it will achieve, I'm more than happy to come. I'll drive out there 5, 10, 20 times if that's what you want. I don't know what the outcome will change unless the Indiantown Village Council has a different thought about this whole thing. I would encourage the council to really rethink what they're trying to do. It's important that you become your own destiny, you become your own place. That's key. It's its own identity. But to think about what's really important and what's important to your residents first is super, super important. And this is probably the single most important decision the council can make. Water and sewer, yeah, super important to have good water, good drinking water, toilets that flush, and a perfectly reliable system that works. Infrastructure that's taken care of, absolutely, it's important. Do either one of those come before fire rescue and sheriff's response? No, absolutely not. Those cannot fail because our whole system relies on trust and the ability to pick up the phone, dial 911, and have somebody show up when you expect to call. That can't fail. If your toilet doesn't flush, okay, that's a huge problem, but we'll fix it tomorrow. You cannot get tomorrow when you dial 911 and somebody doesn't show up. And that fire that Ed was referring to out there, it was horrific. And it was enormous. And man, oh man, you got to be prepared for that. It may not seem like it today, but bad things happen. And the guys sitting in the front row here that are part of that system, they are committed 110% to making sure that that happens. When you call, they'll be there, and they will put their lives on the line, and that's not just said lightly. They put themselves in the way of the fire. They absolutely do. Or the emergency, whatever it may be. So if we want to have a joint meeting, I'm more than happy to come. Again, I don't know what it achieves, but I appreciate the ask, and I'll be there, Susan and Mayor, if that's what you all want to do. I'm more than happy to come. I think all of us have clearly said that. And we'll see what happens. And if at the end of the day you all still decide that you want to do your own department, God love you. Go do your thing, and Martin County will survive, and we'll move on. And we will pick up the pieces if need be, because that's what we do.
Okay, thank you. So I think that the direction was fairly clear. The board has acknowledged that we would certainly participate in a joint meeting should the village wish to take that on. And
Ask
yes,
if there's anybody on Zoom.
is there anybody on Zoom doing public comment? No. And so that you're just looking for direction.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
Yes, Madam Chair. The village is not asking for a joint meeting. That's the staff's recommendation. Your staff is asking for you guys to hold.
That's not true.
Absolutely not true.
I'm sorry.
That's not true.
Well, tell me, Tiara, because
I am telling you, my recommendation is on the screen here. It was to send a letter to the mayor telling her that this item did come to the board today and that we're going to continue under the way the ordinance is structured. The joint meeting came up from public comment. I never mentioned a joint meeting.
It caught me off guard hearing the joint meeting because we're asking for you guys to negotiate. We want to negotiate with the commission, not.
Okay, well, this is becoming an item all in itself. So if that is the dialogue you wish to have, then a joint meeting seems appropriate. So I would say that if your staff reaches out, and we would be happy to participate in a joint meeting in order to discuss, where there's possible terms that can be negotiated. Commissioner Campy and then Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, I
then
think
we're going to
the-
take our closed captioning
thank
break
you.
really quickly.
I think the concept or the time for our administration to negotiate with Indian Town's village manager and his consultant is over. We've already done that. Now, the residents that elected the village council and the residents that elected us, we should sit down. The rubber stops, the buck stops with us. Miss Krista negotiated in good faith. You felt that she did not. You felt that there was a lot of shenanigans. I disagree. I'd like to sit down with my very highly respected colleagues in Indian Town, their council, in a public forum, not in the shadows and the nonsense, and let's hash it out. We'll explain our position. You'll explain yours. Bring your consultant. I'd like to ask him a couple of questions.
Okay, Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, but from me being one perfectly clear, this joint meeting is not to negotiate some kind of a deal. That's not where I'm coming from at all. It is coming from, we are your elected officials. If the city or the village requests us to participate in a meeting and asks us to come, I'm more than happy to come, and we can have the same conversation again, but it's not to negotiate a deal over what we're offering. What we offer is what Indian Town has in its current service and what we have in our current ordinance. And I am, as Commissioner Campy said, 110% okay with the arrangement and what we're doing and what we offer all of our residents, quite frankly, across the entire county. So, again, I'm more than happy to come, but it's not a free-for-all open negotiation and a let's make a deal kind of a thing in a live fishbowl.
I would agree. Okay, so with that, Miss.
I know that there was not non-negotiation, I get that, but there was some talk from the county administrator about there might be some avenues available that we can sharpen a pencil on. I think that is the discussion that needs to be taken. Thank you.
Okay, again, so the direction I have is that, it seems you have willing participants to engage in a joint meeting. And if the village council wishes to meet, then, most of us have said that we will participate. So with that, we are going to take our closed captioning break. It is 11:18. We will come back at 11:28, and just a matter of taking, I'm going to take the matters that have public, that have put in speaker forms. So that will be departmental number 2, and then PH1 and PH2 is the order that we'll take when we come back from break. Thank you.
You're on.
Okay, welcome back to our April 13th Board of County Commission meeting. And we are going to take these couple items that have public comment that they've submitted forms. So we'll start with departmental number 2, contracts that meet the threshold for board approval, 1 million or greater.
Good morning, Christy Brotherton, Purchasing Manager. So the first contract we have for review today is our yard trash processing, transport, and management agreement. We just recently rebid this contract, and each of our vendors were offered 2 options. Under option 1, the contractor will transport the yard trash from the site to a location where the yard trash will be chipped, ground, or otherwise processed and used for a beneficial purpose. This is the current method that has been used. Option number 2, the county's yard trash will be chipped, ground, or otherwise processed on site and then transported to an off-site location for beneficial use. My understanding, Mr. Amerson can clarify if need be, we have not used this option since prior to 2013. Staff has reviewed all of the bids. I know there were some comments about local vendor. Local vendor preference did not come into play for this particular bid, as the low bid for option 1 was within an 8%, and a required 5% is for local vendor preference, excuse me. We did not receive any bid protest during the bid protest period. And staff is recommending that the board award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Camo Farms Incorporated, at a cost of $18.75 a ton for option number 1. And that staff recommends that the board authorize the chair to execute the agreement and lease for yard trash processing services. Can I answer any questions?
Yes. Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. Ms. Brotherton, thank you very much. A couple of questions for you. I do remember prior to 2013 that we had been the previous, I think it was 2 previous contractors ago, the complaint was that they would allow the vegetative waste to pile, to dry out. I guess it was easier to grind it. And then there was certain criteria in the contract that would require them to have a watering truck there to constantly keep it wet. So, and when I was just coming into office back then, the residents in Stewart West and Cobblestone were up in arms about the once it was actually ground, that the dust would blow into their swimming pools, their yards, their cars. And I remember that we canceled that contract, renegotiated at the time with a different vendor, and then we also designed and built a very large building, because I remember we were trying to angle it in such a way that even if they were grinding inside this facility, that it wouldn't necessarily still blow east to west. And so I'm wondering, Mr. Amerson, you had requested that it be part of one of the options. Is it something that prior to 2013 in that specific situation you thought, I know you were in a different municipality at the time, but you're an expert in my mind. Is it an option that may be viable in the future?
Yes, Commissioner. For the record, Sam Amerson, Solid Waste and Utilities Department Director. It could have been a viable option. We didn't know what the market was at the time, so we put the 2 options out there. Our choice clearly was option 1 because there was likely less controversy with any surrounding properties because of the settlement agreement that's in place. You mentioned the Stewart West residents. And so to eliminate dust and particles from leaving the site, we thought option 1 was the more prudent option. But we did have an option for grinding on site just to see what the market is, and if that was a really, really good rate, then we might be able to make accommodations for that on site.
Okay. And having looked at the agenda item, thank you. Having looked at the agenda item that was available, the information that was available, there was a cost analysis for option 1 and option 2 for each of the people that bid. Ms. Brotherton, do you have that as part of, can you go to that
Are
page?
you referring to the bid tabulation?
Yes, I believe I am. This. So now when I look at this, you can see, and I know sometimes it's hard for people to see it from home, so let me just reiterate. Camo Farms option one was $18.75 a ton, but their option two was $29.75. And then there was Coastal Waste and Recycling. Their options 1 and 2 were the same price at $32.49 a ton. And then Interstate Recycling, their option 1 was $20.40, which you said was 8% higher than Camo, correct? Correct. And then in order to engage the local vendor preference, it would have to be within 5%, correct?
Correct.
So 3%, they missed the local vendor preference by 3%.
It's about 8.43%.
8.43, thank you. And then their option 2 was the same as their option 1. And then Tree Cycle Land Clearing, their option 1 and their option 2 was $24.50. So it looks like 3 of them used option 1 and option 2 and sort of just rounded off those 2 options and came up, in my mind, came up with that number versus the lowest option for number 1, which ended up being Camo Farms, but they had an $11 difference for option 2. They had a big thing. I'm wondering if there was the potential, and this is just a wondering out loud, the potential of confusion if people understood that option 1 was really sort of the direction when we offered 2 options. And so I think it starts to get a little complicated. We all heard the public comments this morning. I'm a big proponent of a local vendor preference. That's why we have it. I remember when we didn't. And whether it's this or any of the other industries there, then that would benefit. I do remember during our conversations, even when we were talking about domestic and commercial hauling, trash pickup. And I know that Mr. Emerson and Ms. Brotherton, you have educated me on the fact that it's a different type of bidding procedure. So I'm not trying to confuse the two. I'm just wondering that to be that close to an opportunity for a local vendor to have this, I'm wondering if there was some confusion on how options 1 and 2 were to work. Because obviously if it was only a single option, up the light's coming on from our lawyer, only if it was a single option, maybe the bidding process would have been different. So that's where I have some conflict. Thank you.
So with the, is it truly an option? Can the vendor select option 1 or option 2?
The selection would be at the county's preference.
Staff.
They
Because
have
if
the
you-
option to provide option 1 and option 2 pricing, which all of them provided both, as you can see.
Can I ask one more
But
question?
sure, when we just one moment, because I'm getting to the same. I think when we put the RFP out, we asked for pricing on 2 options, but did we make it clear that we were only selecting either or? Because to me, in the aggregate, there, if there was a combination between option 1 or 2, and you aggregated those together, then there's a clear, bidder that's lower in the aggregate. So is option 1 and 2 service an alternative, or was that offered? And I agree with Commissioner Campy. It's confusing. If you only wanted one option, if staff's preference was 1, then we should have put it out to bid as only option 1. If we're asking, for option 1 and 2, then it seems to me that then we had a preference, and then there's a low bid aggregate, which is also confusing to me.
I guess I have 2 quick questions. One is to Commissioner Hetherington's point. Is there any scenario in the future, Mr. Emerson, that you would look for a hybrid where you would have option 1 as a majority of the year per se, and let's say then option 2 would play in, and then your other point was you wanted to put out option 2 to see if the bids came in at a price that you felt was appropriate for that level of additional effort. Did any of these numbers reach that level of the desire for additional effort?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, we put the 2 options out there. The RFP was clear that the county was looking for pricing for both options. Our intent was only to select one option.
Okay, was that part of the proposal, though, that people would understand it would only be one of the two options?
Commissioner, it says, each bidder is encouraged but not required to provide its prices or rates for two options that are of interest to the county. After the county receives the rates proposed by the bidders, the county shall select the option it prefers. And then it goes on to, describe the difference between option one and option two.
Thank you. This is a lot of money and it's a long-term contract. I hope you don't mind me asking the questions. It seems that the second, the third, and the fourth bidder all use the same. Now, obviously, this was sealed, correct? No one saw each other's bids. So it's interesting that number 2, number 3, and number 4 both made their option 1 and 2 the same price, and that the bidder number 1 had an $11 difference between option number 1 and number 2. That causes me some confusion on what did one think versus the other 3 think, and I'm just wondering if it was laid out in a situation where it was only for option 1 without option 2 really playing into it at all, because it's not like they're all over the place. 3 went one way, and 1, who happens to be the one being recommended for the contract, went a completely different way. Like he would have been pretty far out of the mix had it been option 2. And I don't know, I get what you read, that it would say we might select 1 or we might select 2. I personally find it confusing, and I would make a motion that we, well, before I do that, what would happen if you don't get an answer today? Where are you currently?
Our contract expires, I believe it's June 18.
Okay, and what's that, like 3 months from now?
2 months.
April to May to June, yeah, a couple of months. And then what are some of our options if we wanted to look at this again?
I suppose an option could be we would reject all bids, put it out to bid again, and only have one option. So you're perfectly clear that that's the only option. I don't know that that's going to improve on where we are.
Well, it would at least make the process seem pretty clear to all people bidding that there's only going to be one option. I understand why you wanted 2, because that's how it was for a long time until 2013. And so I would make a motion that we reject all bids and put it out to bid again with just this option that you feel is appropriate. If that works with legal, that's just my opinion. And if I don't have support, then I don't. But I think that it's gray here for me.
Okay, we have a couple. Oh,
Someone's still.
you've still got the speaker though.
No, I don't. You took my microphone away.
Tyson Waters did that.
We need some assistance here.
Okay, so in the meantime, while we have the mic down here, we'll have Commissioner Smith. And do you have a light on? Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think when Ed was asking what are our options, so under the current contract, are there any extensions available to us in time, or are we at the terminus point in June that's it?
So what had happened, the current contract, the initial 3-year term had expired, and we had issued an extension through, I believe, the June 18th date. We did not issue the 2 optional 1-year renewals because staff had indicated that they wanted to revise the scope and go back out to bid, make some changes.
But could you still do that or no?
I would have to consult with legal on that because we did notify the incumbent that we would not be issuing any extensions and that we would be rebidding.
Right, but does the board, and clearly we have 2 attorneys that are going to opine on that, but does the board have the purview to say, all well and good, but we'd like to take or exercise those 2 options while we figure out what we want to do?
I believe the board has the authority to do that.
Because I'd go one step further back. I would like, as a board and staff, to talk about how we handle, especially stuff that happens at the landfill. That for me, and Sam, I think you folks have done an amazing job. I would like to have a a broader conversation as a whole of things that go on, things that happen at the landfill that I'd just love to have input on. Versus you all, and I know you know what you're all doing with what you're doing. I'd still sitting here like to have the opportunity to be able to say, okay, if there's option 1, 2, is there an option 3, or is there an option 4 that we talk about, you talk about, everybody talks about, and says, okay, well, what if we did this that wasn't in that conversation at all? And a conversation, I don't know where it's going to end up, but like the waste management property that's out there in the building, I don't know if they tore it down or if it's been removed, whichever out there. Same thing. For years, I've always thought we ought to acquire that and add that to the inventory of space we have out there, which might allow us different options that we didn't necessarily think about before. So I'm going to second, I think I'm going to second when maybe Sarah gives us, does the board, Sarah, have the option to exercise some extensions while we figure out how, or I'm sorry.
So there's a couple of questions on the floor. Number one, you absolutely, under the purchasing manual and under the request for bid, you have the ability to reject all bids. Because we were in a time crunch, and I want to reiterate, the reason the renewals were not done was because we needed to change fundamentally the way that operation operated out at the landfill. It wasn't working for us, and we felt, and I'll let Mr. Amerson speak to the semantics of it, but we felt we weren't doing what was in the best interest economically of the county. We were paying at the wrong end of the processing, so we changed that. So yes, you can extend if the current provider agrees to it, but we're not going to renew. It would just be a temporary, we can negotiate it and see if we can. I don't know what they will say. I don't know how much time Christy needs. But again, fundamentally, from an operations standpoint, we'll still be operating under the old system.
Okay, so I understand that.
Sure.
But thank you for clarifying that, because the public, I'm sure, wants to hear and understand why we're having this conversation. I'd like to have that conversation. How we operate it, what we're currently doing, what we'd like to do in the future. And I understand there's a fine line between our role and your role as to what we hire professionals to tell us what they think is the right thing to do. At the same time, I think it's also our purview that if we think something differently or we want to communicate that, there's only one option to be able to communicate that, and that's with the 5 of us sitting up here having that dialogue. Because otherwise, when this went out to bid, I didn't even really know that it went out to bid, and I would have liked to have had that conversation before it went out to bid. So we might not end up where we're having the conversation today, having the conversation we're having. Because what we tried really hard, probably 18 plus years ago, was to get away from having these conversations. That staff does their job on the RFPs. We don't get into a debate at the commission level because it can go all over the place, and it really saves us a lot of cover that we're not playing any other role other than doing what staff recommends. The but to that part of the conversation is, before it happens, I would love to be engaged in some of that conversation, whether it's just with our administrator or it's with Sam or whoever, just so I can give my 2 cents worth. I'll give you one other, for instance. Years ago, when INEOS was doing its thing up in Indian River County, there was a direction that our staff wanted to go in. I didn't agree with that direction, and I thought it was a bad move for us. As it turned out, it wasn't so much a bad move, but where it could have gone could have been not so good for us anyway. And I would have loved to, again, had that level of conversation here. So I'm going to second Commissioner Campy's motion, which I think is to reject, right? Was that what it was?
Yes.
And what?
And
I'm going to put the second part in.
And my comment to that would be that whatever legal needs to do or we need to do to extend under the terms of the agreement that were before and operate for some period of time until we can go back out to bid and rebid this option as a option or two options or a third option or whatever the conversation ends up happening. But that's your motion, so I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Commissioner Camping.
Thank you. To clarify my motion, first off, I want to piggyback to what Commissioner Smith said. It was not my intention to look disruptive or to disrespect staff's work, because I'm obviously a big supporter of staff's work. This is how the process works. You come before the county commission and we have an individual vote for this very reason. If not, and I had mentioned it to Ms. Brotherton in the hallway, if it was meant for you to bring it forward and we're just supposed to say we all in a chorus agree, then there's no reason to bring it to us. So by the virtue of the way the system is designed for us to hear it, the cone of silence doesn't allow us to engage you or the process once the cone of silence, which sounds like a get smart kind of a vibe, but it's designed so that we're not engaging, like Commissioner Smith said, we're not putting our 2 cents in where we could potentially get into legal trouble. This is when we have to. So although I had some concerns, I think that if we allow you to hit the reset button on this by, my motion is to reject the bids as presented, since in my mind there was confusion with the two options, and the way that the dollars came in from the 4 bidders sort of speaks to me that there would have potentially been confusion. That we give you the process as expeditiously as you are legally allowed to do it again, and then for our legal department representatives to negotiate a buffer extension that would carry us through to the next portion of this process.
Is the seconder agree to
Yes,
all
ma'am.
that? Okay. Commissioner Jenkins.
I don't want to derail the conversation, but if I don't say this, I'll forget. I'd like to have a conversation with somebody about the 5% local preference, how that number got there, what's the justification for it, because in my mind, that seems a little low. So.
I would agree with having that conversation.
I would agree
Come
as
back
well.
as well. So we do have some public comments on this. And we do have a motion on the floor with Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Smith. I'm going to go ahead and take public comments. The first speaker is Kevin Thomas. Kevin will be followed by Trevor Roll. Kevin is no longer here. Okay. Is Trevor Roll here? Okay, we're moving right along. The comment, Jed Browning.
It might be okay. You can tell him he doesn't have to speak if you don't want to.
You still like to speak, Mr. Browning?
Do all that, there's really nothing to go over. I mean, I can get on those points later as we negotiate with legal and all that, so appreciate you guys' time and have a good afternoon.
Okay, great. So that's my last speaker form. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Obviously, we were extracting those two items from departmental number 2, and you have number 2 of that item.
Okay. Okay, the next item for consideration is for our Sailfish Sands Golf Course parking lot project. The reason for this item today is that staff is proposing an amendment in the amount of $191,210.25. This is for the installation of a new irrigation system to parking lots and retention area per plan. The irrigation system is necessary to provide the maximum required water, the new landscaping within and around the new parking lot, and the proposed St. Lucie Boulevard traffic calming medians. Staff is recommending that the board approve change order number 2 to HG Construction Development and Investment Incorporated in the amount of $191,210.25, and that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute any and all documents related to this request. The third item for your consideration today is for our general contractor services. The request today is to increase the amount of the contract not to exceed by $100,000. The original amount is $5 million. The reason for this request is we have over encumbered the amount of the not to exceed at the $5 million. Part of that reason was because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and as you can see throughout the county facilities, all the improvements that have been made for social distancing. So we utilize our continuing contracts whenever we are able to. This request will help us fund current obligations and get us through the bid process. We are finalizing our RFP. We'll hopefully have it out on the streets next week so we can rebid this. Staff is recommending that the board approve the amendment to the agreement for RFB 2018-3084 General Contractor Services to increase the not-to-exceed value of the contract in the amount of $100,000 for a revised maximum not-to-exceed value of $5.1 million, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute any and all documents related to this request. And that concludes this item.
I have a question back on, I think it was number 2. Was this an unanticipated, the irrigation, was that something that was not in the original scope? It obviously, there was a change order number 1 approved administratively for $43,000, and then this is the second for $191,000. Was an irrigation system not part of the original scope? Did we add it? Did we realize we need more irrigation? I just don't understand how we keep layering onto this.
I'll defer to George Sama for that.
Hi, George Zama, Public Works Deputy Director. This is not an unforeseen scope item. In an effort to keep the project moving along, we bid out the project, and in fact, there was an addendum that the irrigation system was still under design. So in an effort to keep the project moving along, we chose to concurrently perform the design of the irrigation system, which is actually quite complex and robust in nature. Our consultants didn't know the true condition of the existing irrigation system, so it's a complete overhaul. So that's why the design of the irrigation system took longer than expected. So it wasn't an addendum we provided an allowance not knowing the cost, but the design came in after construction started, and we requested a price for installing the system as designed by our consultant, HJA Design Studios. We compared this cost to other local reputable contractors, and it came in cheaper, which works out within this contract. It is budgeted. It is in the overall budget. So this would have been an item that we would have been paying for anyway.
So this item, when you originally present, and that's what I'm trying to get at, because was this item originally in when we approved the construction?
Correct. It was in the overall budget of the project, being the golf course renovations, the parking lot, and the building.
Allocated. You didn't allocate it, right? You budgeted, but you didn't allocate the
Correct,
funds
at the time.
because you weren't done with design.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the part that wasn't clear to me, and it looks like we're adding on to a project that's in process, not that we were still in design and adding this. So you have answered my question. Thanks. Commissioner Smith.
Madam Chair, thank you. I would move approval of item 2 and, was it 2? 2 and 3?
B1 and
B1 and, I'm sorry, B1 and B2.
C1 and
C1.
C1 and C2.
C1 and is it C1 and 2 or C1 and 3?
It's B1 and C1.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we are going to PH1.
No, we got one more. We got a whole
Yeah.
group of people waiting.
We've got
Oh my God, you guys are killing me.
We are going to forge ahead into PH1. And prior to lunch.
Really?
They knew they were coming up.
They'll come back. Trust me. They'll come back.
Maria Jose, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, Maria Jose, Senior Planner with the Growth Management Department. Today's public hearing is regarding CPA 19-19 Pulte at Christ Fellowship, an amendment, a request for an amendment to the future land use map. I just want to note that this is the third public hearing. This is the adoption hearing. Also, concurrent to this hearing is CPA 20-04 Pulte at Christ Fellowship text amendment, which is a concurrent text amendment. That's a request for a site-specific text amendment. That one is also the final, third public hearing for adoption. So CPA 19-19 Pulte at Christ Fellowship was taken to the board on September 2020, where the board voted to approve transmittal. I do have a couple of slides that I can quickly go through. I leave that up to the board, to the chair.
She's the boss.
Yes, well, quickly.
All right, thank you. So for the proposed future land use map amendment, the applicant is Christ Fellowship Church, Inc., represented by Court Hearing Hearing. The amendment is from rural density residential, which allows up to 1 unit per 2 acres, to residential estate density, up to 1 unit per acre. Subject site is 321 acres, located east of Southwest Pratt and Whitney Road and north of Southwest Bulldog Way. The subject site is located within the secondary urban service district. And this is just a map that shows the subject site highlighted in blue. In pink, we can see the primary urban service district. The green represents secondary urban service district. So this map shows how the subject property is within the secondary urban service district. The subject site is currently served with water and sewer provided by Martin County Utilities. The proposed land use designation is generally compatible to the neighboring parcels and all their land uses. No change to the secondary urban service district is necessary. Staff recommendation is approval. The proposed designation and the proposed density of 1 unit per acre, it complies with the comp plan policies regarding uses and density allowed in the secondary urban service districts. It already contains necessary infrastructure and provisions. So considering all of these factors, staff recommends approval of the proposed change from rural density residential to residential estate density up to 1 unit per acre. So that's my presentation, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? At the moment, we have some public commenters. We will take Tara Baldwin first and followed by Blaine Albright. Oh, see, that was this morning.
Good morning or afternoon. Thank you guys for all
giving me the opportunity to speak again. My name is Tara Baldwin. I am the president and co-founder of Operation 300. Also lived in Martin County most of my life, and just want to say once again that I'm 100% in agreement and approve of this project, and hope that you as the commissioners will see it as something that is beneficial for the community, our citizens, and obviously a nonprofit that is centrally located right here in Martin County and serves people from all over the world. And we're grateful for the way that the community continues to support us, and this will just be one step further in completing our mission to serve children and families of fallen soldiers. Thank you.
Thank you. Blaine Albright, followed by Lewis.
Could I please interrupt just a second?
Yes.
Commissioner, typically, and it's the board's discretion, but typically you would hear the applicant's presentation.
Okay.
Prior to, but you may certainly move forward with public comment, but just following your standard procedures, if I could. So.
Does the applicant have a presentation?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, for the record, Daniel Sorrow with the land planning firm of Kotler and Herring. Don't have a presentation per se, but just to add a few words, and I would like to turn in for the record the affidavit that those surrounding residents have been properly notified of this meeting this morning. And on behalf of the applicant, we are in agreement with staff's recommendation of approval, local planning agencies recommending approval, and also this board's decision almost 6 months ago to recommend approval. It's gone to DEO, the state agency, which reviewed our application. They have provided 0 comments on the application. It's for adoption. By approving the adoption this morning, it will allow us to come back 2 weeks from today and present the zoning and the master plan, which we can talk about some of the details and the ultimate build out of the site. So thank you for your time. Our team would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for that. And we're going to move back to public comment. Blaine Albright, followed by Lewis Hoffpower. Is Blaine still in the room?
He left.
Okay. Lewis Hoffpower. Okay. Leo Abdallah. Carol Pelton. Okay. Billy Vaughn. Okay. We had another speaker form just turned in, but Mr. Dowd, you spoke this morning on public comment, so we can't speak twice on an item. I'm looking at our attorney table over there, and she's shaking her head.
Yeah, your policy does not allow for that, for someone to give somebody else their time.
Well, we're taking comment on PH1.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
He's going to have the one too.
PH2.
Right.
Okay.
He would be allowed to speak on PH2.
Okay, so PH2. Does Miss Story, was that an old light?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
It's an old light.
Old light. Commissioner Smith.
Madam Chair, unless there's anything else to come before us, I would move approval of staff's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. Commissioner Hurd.
Yes, would you please turn to page 310 of the agenda item? Would you open it out a little bit, please? This just shows an aerial map of the general area. As you can see, it's completely incompatible. This new requested future land use is completely incompatible with the neighboring adjacent land uses. And can you please go to page 414? And this is a depiction of the proposed future land use map with the new proposed future land use, which, as you can see even more clearly, depicts an incompatible future land use. It's an urban enclave in an otherwise predominantly agricultural area outside the urban service boundary. The neighbors who couldn't be with us today, 137 of them, signed petitions in opposition to this because of its inherent incompatibility. I'm going to side with those residents in opposition to this.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Camping.
Just for clarification's sake, Ms. Joes, on that aerial, you didn't mention it today, but I remember hearing it and it stuck with me in the past. What is the density of the Florida Club?
That property is located west, northwest. It's residential estate density, 2 units per acre.
Okay.
So I just want to note that residential estate density, that land use, we have 2 types. We have residential estate density 1 unit per acre and residential estate density 2 units per acre. The applicant is requesting for residential estate density 1 unit per acre.
Okay, so thank you. So the Florida Club, which is the first neighborhood when you make the left on Canner onto Pratt Whitney, that's 2 homes per acre, correct?
Yeah,
And
2
then-
units per acre, yes.
Units, homes, I just want to be clear for people that are following at home possibly. And then Christ Fellowship's request is 1 home or unit per acre.
Yes.
And Foxwood is,
Foxwood is located to the south of the subject property, and it's rural density residential. Rural density residential is 1 unit per 2 acres.
okay, so that was my point. So if Fox Club is 2 units per 1 acre, Christ Fellowship is 1 unit per 1 acre, and Foxwood is 1 unit per 2 acres. So it seems to transition across. That's partly where I felt my interest in supporting the project. I think 1 home per acre. I did hear from the residents, actually the gentleman that spoke this morning read from his neighbor who I know them. And so I get the concept that people don't want to have increased densities near their homes and things like that, but this is a large piece of property that the church is owned in negotiation with Pulte. And to me, that sort of works its way across the transitions of these different densities. So I know that folks that live in Foxwood would prefer nothing. Most residents that we run into don't want things that are built near them. I just think that for me, this is a transition that is appropriate. Thank you.
And if I may add, according to our comp plan policies, densities such as 1 unit per acre belong in the secondary urban service district. So that's also one of the things noted in the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Not 100% germane to the motion. However, one of the speakers this morning talked about a fire that was in the neighborhood to the south. I think if we move forward in a couple weeks, we probably ought to have a conversation utilities reaches out to them, that is there a scale of economy in terms of how water and sewer acts and hydrants and whatnot, so that we're not hanging out on the edge. Because what would seem really awkward to me is that we have utilities at the school that we did through an agreement years ago, which really, I think, helped us deal and understand this piece of property moving into the future. Certainly with Christ Fellowship locating their facility there, it would be sort of kind of offline not to have that conversation with
hydrants.
Right. So anyway, not germane to this, I understand, but I think we ought to, as a commission, certainly as staff, have a conversation about what an extension looks like and how do we deal with that. So my motion still stands, and as one speaker also said this morning, The first phase of this, when the church did get built, the consultants and everybody that did put the environmental together was world class. I mean, I remember them talking about how they literally hand walked the entire site, and it's a really special place, and it was really well done. So thank you for bringing that back up.
Great. Okay, we had a motion on the floor by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Hurd dissenting. And we are going to follow this up and take public hearing number 2. Presented by Maria Jose.
So this one is public hearing 2, CPA 20-04, Pulte at Christ Fellowship text amendment. So this is the text amendment that's concurrent to the previous future land use map amendment request. This one is also the adoption hearing. So this is a site-specific text amendment regarding the subject property. The proposed amendment is to policy 4.7A14 to establish a site-specific exception for the 321-acre subject property. The amendment would allow lots smaller than 1/2 acre for the site. As I mentioned earlier, the site is located within the secondary urban service district. It is currently served with water and sewer provided by Martin County Utilities. And just in this map, I wanted to show the Tropical Farms utility plant. And South Fork High School is also located nearby. So the applicant's proposed amendment to policy 4.7A14. Here we can see the underlined language the applicant proposed. Staff recommends denial of the applicant's proposed language. We find that the last sentence is a bit overly broad. So staff recommends an alternative text amendment to the policy. So this is staff recommendation to policy 4.7A14. where to the list of properties, the subject property is added, and also South Fork High School is also added. Staff also recommends an amendment to policy 4.7B6, criteria for change of designation. So staff recommends adding this text to policy 4.7B6 so that this subject site does not need to be included in the primary urban service district and may have lots less than 1/2 acre in size. Staff also recommends amending this policy to reference lots smaller than 1 acre, as you can see here. Referencing 1 acre lot sizes in this policy is more consistent with the comp plan policies. Staff also recommends approval because the site is already served by centralized water and sewer service. Lot size requirements in the comp plan policies are related to the use of septic systems in the secondary urban service district. However, since this particular subject site already has access to centralized water and sewer lines, applicants for development approval are required to connect. So where centralized water and sewer service is provided, neither 1 acre nor 1/2 acre minimum lot sizes appear necessary. So considering all of the factors, staff recommends approval of the alternate proposal provided by staff. The recommendation is to approve the ordinance for CPA 20-04. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay. Anybody with questions for staff? Does the applicant have a presentation?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we're in agreement with staff's proposed language and their previous recommendation of approval, LPA's previous recommendation of approval, this Commission's previous recommendation to transmit to the state. We will look for your favorable approval today. Thank you.
Thank you. We will take public comment as this is a public hearing. I thought I saw Mr. Dowd step out, but if you are in the lobby and you would like to comment? Okay. Seeing no public comment, it comes back to the board.
So I apologize, I was over asking staff a question. So Dan, you agreed with the language that staff recommended? Okay, thank you. I would move staff's recommendation then, with the changes to the language as presented by staff today at the hearing.
Okay, great. We have a motion by Commissioner Smith on the floor,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Campy, and we have a light on by Commissioner Hurd.
Yes, I'm not going to support the motion. The secondary urban service district was created as part of the comprehensive plan in order to transition between the more urban uses in the primary urban service boundary and the agricultural uses outside of it. Creating exceptions by waiving for specific sites is just poor planning. So it's incompatible, poor planning, so I'm not going to support it.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Hurd dissenting. And with that, we're good. Precisely 12:30 on the dot. We will take our lunch break and come back at 2 p.m.